Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Ford, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard, loud and clear. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up on the show today, we're going to get into David French and his opinion piece in the New York Times saying, I'm a conservative, but I'll never vote for Donald Trump. We'll cover the Harris tax plan for tips. Is she just copying Donald Trump? And after all the left said about Trump's tax plan not to tax the tips, are they going to have to revert back? We'll get into that issue. And then the Tina Peters case. Jimmy Sengenberger is going to be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour to give us an update on the Tina Peters case as it possibly goes to the jury this week. So we'll get an update on that. And then Denver with $100 million sales tax plan, because paying for those illegal immigrants isn't going to be easy. They're going to have to tax you now. They've come up with that plan. Joshua Sharf of the Independence Institute is going to join us to give us an update on that plan, which will be on the ballot for Denver city residents. So a whole lot of news to cover today. Plus, Donald Trump will be with Elon Musk this evening. We're going to be watching that, covering that. We'll have all those details tomorrow. So a lot of news to cover. But speaking of news, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Happy Monday to you and Billy. 62 and cloudy, expecting a high of 86 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Commerce City Police reeling following a rash of weekend gun violence that left 4 people dead. It began Friday night when 2 people were shot and wounded in a 7-Eleven parking lot. The suspect in that case was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. On Saturday night, a man was shot and killed at Pioneer Park, and a person of interest was taken into custody. The violence continued early Sunday morning when 2 people were killed in a reported shootout involving at least 4 people near 65th Avenue and Monaco Street. The Commerce City Police Department calls it one of the most violent weekends they've ever seen.
Because we know there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. Mind your own damn business.
They'd like us to mind our own damn business. It's day 22, and VP Harris continues to hide out from reporters. She hasn't had a press conference since President Biden was forced out by his buddies in the Democratic Party, and she was installed. I think I heard
Blake,
Jeff.
Yeah. So, okay. For all the kids listening out there, that is not the golden rule.
Right. Exactly. What is it? The golden rule?
The golden
Mind
rule.
your own damn business?
Yeah, that is not the golden rule. Okay.
Oh,
the golden rule is do unto others as you would have do unto yourself, right? It comes from Jesus's teachings.
Exactly.
And Jesus's teachings were not mind your own damn business. So
What
all the kids head
chapter
to
and verse
school.
was that?
Everybody who heard that, I just need to correct the record that the man that was speaking, who wants to be the vice president of the United States, that was not the golden rule.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarity. I think that is hilarious. I was thinking the same thing. Hugh Hewitt had this press conference from a few years ago of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the bozo, who, of course, is running for VP with Harris. He leads people to believe that he was in uniform at Bagram. He was there as a member of Congress.
I stood one night in the dark of night on the tarmac at Bagram and watched a military ramp ceremony. And if you've seen it, which these folks, many have, unfortunately, you don't leave the same. And it makes you wonder, what are we doing? What are we trying to get to?
All right. So I don't know if they'll answer any questions from the press or the media about this, but lot of people not happy with this. Tom Behrens took over the battalion. You may remember this after Walls left before they went to Iraq in the early 2000s.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea? I was like, well, for Pete's sake, this guy quit. And if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Well, Walls is a radical lefty, and so is Harris. And remember, she's running for president. Tom Cotton, Arkansas.
She refuses to take questions about what direction she would take this country in. She hasn't had a single proposal since she became the presidential nominee. Well, I take that back. Last night, she said that she was going to eliminate taxes on tips. So the only proposal she's had since she became a presidential nominee is to steal one of Donald Trump's ideas at a time when her administration said that they would crack down on the taxation of tips. That's why they needed $87 billion for more IRS enforcement. This is the kind of flip-flopping and deception you get from Kamala Harris, who is a dangerous San Francisco liberal who has taken positions in the past like decriminalizing illegal immigration and giving health care to illegal aliens. Her campaign claims that she's changed. She needs to answer questions about why she changed and when she changed.
President Biden talked to CBS Sunday Morning over the weekend. He's definitely lost his mind.
Think of this. Every other time the Ku Klux Klan's been involved, they wore hoods, so they're not identified. Under his presidency, they came out of those woods with no hoods, knowing they had an ally. That's how I read it. They knew they had an ally in the White House. And he stepped up for them.
Wow. The guy who eulogized one of the most influential KKK members of all time, Biden. All right, news brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954 online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Broncos beat the Colts 34-30, first preseason game. Rockies over the Braves 9-8 at Arizona tonight. The United States coming home after one of the most successful summer games in history. Team USA won 126 medals overall, their highest total since capturing 174 medals in Los Angeles in 1984. And you'll hear this. You won't see it, but I'll describe it. So LeBron gets out of his car in Paris. There's a young boy waiting for him, maybe to get a photo or an autograph. And he stands over him and says, stop, stop, stop. And then just walks into a party, started a little dancing before he goes into the door. Never meet your heroes. Just totally stiffs this young boy. It's embarrassing. He's such a jerk.
Blake, you've been around a lot of sports guys. I haven't been. My career hasn't been in that at all. I might have been with politicians, and we can have a conversation about that. But
yeah,
was this kind of standard for sports guys, or is LeBron? LeBron has always rubbed me as a guy that is pretty arrogant. Like had the talent.
Absolutely.
Talent came to him early. Never went to college. I remember people talking about LeBron when he was in like 7th grade or 8th grade, right?
Sure.
So he's had this attention his entire life.
No doubt.
Is he more arrogant? Well, first of all, is he arrogant, and is he more arrogant than most sports athletes are out there?
I think so. That's what I find. I mean, I used to talk to Kobe Bryant all the time in the hallway, and he wasn't like him at all. I mean, really? He's called the king, and he believes it. He's been pampered since he was 7, 8 years old, when people knew he'd be a superstar. Phenomenal athlete, just absolutely incredible. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He could do whatever he wanted to do. And I was a huge fan of his, for a long time. And then he just turned into a jackwagon. And, when people are kissing your rump, your entire life, and you have everything you need. I mean, you barely really interact with regular people, honestly, Jeff. I mean, it's probably like politicians, I'm sure, but for
at least politicians have to go out there and remember that
Right.
the people vote for them. So you kind of have to
kiss
fake
babies
being
and
nice
shake
to 'em.
hands.
Right.
Yeah, they have to. But
shaking
it's
babies
just,
and kissing hands.
yes, yeah, shaking. You're right, right. So I mean, they get out of their cars, they get into a hallway, they have security guards, and then they go into their little bubble in their fake world. And then, they don't answer any difficult questions. And if they do, then you're a hater or you're a bigot or whatever. So,
now,
but there are a lot of athletes who are humble and outstanding. But but guys like LeBron, I mean, he's an idiot.
No, I remember when Carl Mecklenburg turned down an autograph, right? Isn't that? Or no,
I don't
no,
remember that one. Mecklenburg was always great. I mean, as far as I knew.
Or ripped up an autograph or something.
Really?
When they,
I've never heard that one. Wow.
You never heard that one?
No, I've never.
It was during the. I thought it was him. I thought he walked in and then.
Wow, that would not.
This was
seem
during
like him,
and I think he regretted doing that. But here you have LeBron refusing to do autographs, and he's just going to skate by.
And cameras are on all the time. I get it. People have a bad day, whatever. But I mean, this is the type of thing he does on a regular basis. So, you can understand it. There are, some great football players. There are great basketball players, hockey players. They're accommodating. They're awesome. Baseball players can be miserable because they're always around the media, always around the press. The press and the media and the reporters are in the clubhouse constantly. So, and they have so many games. So, I mean, they're great guys. They're horrible guys. And LeBron's just not my favorite. So, anyway,
he ripped up an autograph of an 8-year-old fan. He did this because the kid was going into the scab game. That Mecklenburg was
the
picketing.
Strike. That's right.
Yeah.
So it was. That had to do with the strike back in the day. So,
and I think he always felt bad. I think he always felt bad about that.
I'm sure he did. Carl's awesome. He's a good dude. I forgot about that. I think that had something to do with them striking and representing.
Their emotions were high.
Yeah, exactly. And grandfather clause is in. That was like 30 years ago or whatever, right? 35 years ago. He's awesome. All right, it's 60 in Parker, 59 in North Glen, 62 in Denver. Jeff and Bill, they have just kicked off the week and they are excited. It is Monday. Blake Olson News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, Billy, we are back, and it is election year, and the op-eds over the weekend definitely reflected that. Came across this one from David French. Now, there was a time in my life where I liked David. We invited David to CCU and hosted him there as a part of our conservative conversations and discussions. And in my mind, David's gone off the rails in a lot of ways. But I want to talk about this op-ed he had in the New York Times over the weekend. To save conservatism from itself, I am voting for Harris. So he begins by, patting his conservative bona fides. I'm pro-life. I've always stood for life at the beginning of conception. I support Dobbs' decision. And then he begins to make the transition. And the transition isn't unique in the sense of this is essentially what we've heard for the last, 8 years now. That Donald Trump doesn't reflect Christian conservative values, that he's an extremist, that he's going to lead to violence, all this stuff. What I noticed that was kind of unique about the opinion piece was that in all of it, he never really talks about the great things that Kamala Harris is going to do. So the entire piece is motivated by his hatred of Donald Trump. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because there's a number of people in Colorado, even within the Republican ranks in Colorado, that think like this. And so I want to talk a little bit about getting stuck in Trump derangement syndrome and putting yourself there and being willing to put up with 4, possibly 8 years of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because you're so adamantly anti-Trump. That's amazing to me. Okay, that you would be in that position, and what it reminds me of, Billy, there are groups I've come across in the Colorado spectrum that would rather Colorado political spectrum that would rather lose this election to send a message to their core supporters than they would win with somebody that doesn't fully agree with them. And there's certain gun groups in Colorado that are kind of like this. They're like all in. You either are with us 100% or you're not with us at all. And I'm willing to lose an election to have somebody that's totally opposed to us take office than somebody that's in our core that's not with us 100%. And I've always found that fascinating. Like, really, you'd rather have somebody that's totally opposed to your values to try to clean out your own organization than somebody that's not with you 100%?
Now, just for the purpose of the conversation, going forward, we'd just like to have you define, as you see it, Trump derangement syndrome. Just for the conversation. Yeah, continue. I'll stay out of this for a bit. Yeah. So
TDS is this ditch that I find some Republicans get themselves into. And Dick Wadhams has found himself in that, and some other Republicans in Colorado, but David French too, where they find the negatives of Donald Trump, which I'm not ignoring, right? The guy, has had multiple marriages, probably has had sex out of wedlock. I don't know, but probably did.
Oh yeah, he's confirmed that. He's confirmed that on every single wife he's cheated on, and we have outside third-party confirmation of that happening. So that is not anything that is questionable. He has cheated on every wife that he has.
So those negatives, okay, and things like, well, there's certain parts of the MAGA movement I don't like. Okay, America First. We're not quite as neoconish as we used to be. So you get a kind of combination of personal failures plus policy disagreements that these folks elevate to such a point that in their minds, in their positions, Donald Trump is not only a bad person for the Republican Party, he's almost evil for America. And therefore, to put him into office is to jeopardize America to such a point that I'm willing to vote for Kamala Harris as a quote unquote Republican in order to stop that from happening. Okay. And the thing I find in all of this is I'm sitting here and look, I'm a guy that I think is just kind of a balanced Republican when it comes to recognizing what I believe are the real problems with America, which is the radical left. Okay. When you get to the real root of what is a threat to America, it's the radical left. So I'm willing to get behind Mitt Romney in 2012 to try to stop Barack Obama. I'm willing to get behind John McCain. I'm willing to get behind Donald Trump. For me, it is going after the communists that are a real threat to this country, that are destroying the fabric of this country, rather than focusing on what would be a handful of policy differences and a personality difference within the Republican Party, and believing that is in itself the threat to America. That's what I don't get. So I'm sitting here reading all of David French's opinion piece in the New York Times, by the way, titled "To Save Conservatism from Itself, I'm Voting for Harris." And I'm sitting there going, this guy can't find one positive thing about the Trump presidency or Trump's character. And I'm just going, can you ask yourself this one question? Like, honestly, just take yourself out of this ditch you've put yourself in. And I'll tell Dick Wadhams this. Why is Donald Trump winning Republican primaries? And what they'll often revert to is this kind of notion of, well, he's tricked Republicans or conservatives. You know, they're deceived by this guy. I'm like, really? You were the Republican Party chairman in the state of Colorado, David French. You've been in the conservative movement for 25, 30 years, and you believe that conservatives or Republicans are deceived at this point? I think you need to take an honest look at what aspect of Trump's personality and policies are appealing to conservatives, and just reflect on it. Just think about it. I'm not saying you have to buy into it or agree with it, but can you just for a second consider it? And here's what it is. The guy fights harder than any other Republican or conservative that we've had in a long, long time. He throws elbows. And conservatives are sick and tired of watching their country descend down a progressive, leftist, communist agenda. And they want somebody that's really going to take it to them, take it to the media, take it to the deep state. They want a fighter. And Ron DeSantis is close to that. But what you're seeing is the next generation of Republicans and conservatives are learning from this. That's why Ron DeSantis, I think, will be the next in line. Even though he wasn't in this case, he'll be the next in line. And when the left came after Donald Trump legally, and they tried to take him to court and bankrupt him and mugshot him and put him in jail and all that stuff, they just confirmed that the left sees this guy as a big threat to the deep state establishment, and we're ready to go after and fight against him. So that's what's amazing to me is David French, the Dick Wadhams, won't even acknowledge that what the Republicans like about Donald Trump, what appeals to grassroots conservatives, is the fact that he's a street brawler, and they want that out of their candidates right now. So, you know, it's amazing to me that rather than recognize that, rather than understand that, rather than even just put up with a few differences in personality and in policy that you disagree with, you'd rather have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in office doing their unrestricted damage to this country like they've done with the border already, like they've done with inflation. You'd rather have that in than somebody that you just have some disagreements with. I don't know. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Give me a call. Tell me where I'm wrong. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Tell me how, especially if you're a Republican, and if you're voting for Kamala Harris, or even if you're sitting it out, I'm just going to vote down ticket. Tell me why it's important that Donald Trump lose this election to save this nation. As a Republican, tell me that. That's what I don't get. 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Perhaps David French could write his next opinion piece on how he had an affair to save his marriage. Yeah. Interesting points. Jason in Denver, very interesting point. Billy, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. We've got Tony Littleton hanging on the phones. He'll be with us in a second here.
Okay.
The thing that I've got is I kind of look at the definition of Trump derangement syndrome. And that's why I asked about it. Because for me, from where I sit, and again, I know that everybody thinks that I'm this bleeding heart liberal, but I'm not. I'm not a registered Democrat, not a registered Republican, haven't been part of a functioning political party for over 2 decades on purpose, because I dislike both of them deeply inside of my soul. And what I have been seeing for the last 8-9 years with the call about Trump derangement syndrome are a bunch of Republicans that refuse to look in the mirror. A bunch of Republicans that lodge that when they're not going to deal with some of the criticism about their chosen candidate, a candidate that is on his 3rd different presidential run, as also 3rd different chance to capture the presidency under 3 different parties. He's not a lifelong Republican, nor can you really call him. I question the idea of him being a conservative. He's a populist. He's not a conservative. So when David French is trying to save conservatism based on not having his party put the populist in power, I think he has a point. I think he has a point about this. What he's saying is this is about power for the Republican Party, not about principle. This isn't about finding a candidate that clings to the conservative principles that we want America to return to. This is about using populism in order to grab power and then use that power to affect the changes you want from the top down. That's where he's complaining from.
But isn't that? But that's every election. So I mean, look,
not necessarily.
If we didn't have a candidate that was 100% pro-life at the moment of conception, all the way through, with no exceptions for rape and incest, and said instead I'm going to allow, because politically I can't get elected under that, so I'm going to allow exceptions. Wouldn't you say they're quote unquote abandoning principles for populism in order to get power?
That's a fair critique, but not necessarily, because the idea being, does it reflect where the electorate is at that point? If the individual says, okay, I believe this, but the people that I'm representing believe something else, we have no indication of that under Trump, however. There doesn't seem to be any core beliefs. I mean, I understand some of the criticisms as far as, and this is, again, why Donald Trump is a cursed monkey paw for the GOP. Yes, Kamala has switched her positions. So is Trump. So is J.D. Vance. I mean, you were talking about the Trump derangement syndrome sufferers as thinking that Trump's an existential threat to the country. Well, at one point, that included his running mate. His running mate thought he was an existential threat to this country. But we're not talking about him flip-flopping or switching or anything else. That's the difficulty, is outside of Trump win, Trump in power, he doesn't appear to have any core belief structure at all. And that's a problem. Also, I would submit for someone like David French, it is important that the conservative in the conversation do things like, I don't know, understand the Constitution. That would probably be a good thing, because over the weekend on Truth Social, Trump took aim at a fantasy, or it was maybe Thursday last week, about Joe Biden coming into the DNC and snatching back the nomination. And the entire thing he did when he rambled about it was the fact that it was, it was on Fox News. We did an interview, and he rambled, and then he talked about how he thought the entire process of what's going on with Kamala Harris and Biden is unconstitutional. He started out declaring it was unconstitutional, and at the end closed by saying it sounds unconstitutional. Not even close. Not even close to being unconstitutional. But that's the lack of knowledge that he carries. That should be a critique and a question for many conservatives. If you're talking about a guy that is going to defend the Constitution, he might need to have a basic understanding of what it is first. That, I think, is French's critique, is this is about chasing power instead of holding to principle.
The best answer is Kamala Harris?
When it's a binary
she can't
choice.
Even defend our borders. Talk about when constitutional.
But when it's a binary choice, that's right. The choice he's making. That's what he's putting forth. He's putting forth the idea of, I'm not going to grab power through populism simply for power's sake. That the principle in and of itself is more important. So if that means that the populist grabbing power isn't there and the other people win, yeah, he's going to take that bargain as well.
So when these gun groups in Colorado are like, we'd rather have a Democrat in than a squishy Republican on gun issues, it's about populism?
No, it's about them holding on to their principles. And that's the thing. And that's what French is doing. Yeah, and French is hanging on to his principles, and he's saying Trump. But
how are you holding on to your principles when you vote for Kamala Harris? There's no way that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are better at understanding the Constitution and power. They can't even get the fundamental basic role of government right, which is to defend its own people.
I would disagree. I would say that if you asked for a written essay from the former civics teacher in high school about the function of the Constitution of the government, he's going to nail it. Walz is going to lap Trump over and over again based on that knowledge. He will do the same thing to Vance. He's a civics teacher. He taught how government functions.
This guy marched in an abolish ICE protest.
Hang on a second.
He doesn't get the function of government.
Hold on. He can march in any protest he wants. He was a civics teacher. Hang on a sec.
Abolish ICE. Wait, the vice presidential candidate wants to abolish ICE.
Hold on. So if you're submitting that if anybody marches in a protest that anybody else disagrees with, that evaporates their knowledge. He somehow
he doesn't get the basic function of the federal government. He'd rather have a totally open border.
Again,
he can't do the basic job of running the government. And we're saying he's good because he can pass a civics test.
No,
he's better equipped.
He taught civics and was named Teacher of the Year in Minnesota. He did that. So again, yeah, I know.
He still wants to abolish ICE and have open borders, Billy.
That's a critique on his position. Our conversation is about who understands the Constitution and government better. Tim Walz is going to lap every one of those, all four of them, including his running mate. Absolutely. He's a civics teacher. If you can't admit that, we're going to have a problem having a conversation going forward because we can disagree with the role Tim Walz sees for the government. We can disagree about the positions on immigration, on ICE, on economics, on foreign wars, 110 things. We can talk about disagreeing with Tim Walz, but the one thing we can't do is impugn his ability to understand the Constitution of the government better than the other four. He's taught it in high school.
Sure, I can.
Okay, so you think Donald Trump has a better
open borders? That is like a basic failure of the role of a federal government official.
And Donald Trump believes what happened with Kamala Harris is unconstitutional. That's a basic failure of the fundamental understanding of how the Constitution works. That's a bit bigger. If we're ranking them, if it's rank order choice.
No way.
Not understanding how the Constitution functions.
Is way worse, Billy.
No.
Way worse.
You're talking about.
Look at what it's done to our country.
Again, you're talking harm. You're arguing something I'm not arguing. I'm not talking about his positions causing harm. I'm talking about fundamental knowledge. The fundamental knowledge that Tim Walz has cannot be replicated by Donald Trump based on the Constitution, nor can J.D. Vance, nor can that be replicated by Kamala Harris. He's a former civics teacher. He has the fundamental knowledge about it. You can disagree with his application and his positions, and that is fair. But he knows more about Donald Trump, about the Constitution, and I just demonstrated it. That's it. And we got to take a break. We got to get to Tony here in a second.
We do. We're starting off the week fun, Billy. All right. 8422. I'm with you on this one. Trump wants to defend the Constitution. Harris wants to destroy it. I agree. They want to remake America in its entirety. All right. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking this David French opinion piece that took place over the weekend in the New York Times. To save conservatism from itself, I'm voting for a communist. Essentially. And this is where David French's, and I've noticed other Republicans, they get into a ditch about Trump's personality failures and a handful of policy differences, and they can't get out of it. And I ran into the same thing with a few Republicans, Billy, in 2012 when they were like, I will never vote for a Mormon. Mormons believe in heresy, and I cannot, in good conscience, put somebody in that believes in heresy into the office. I'm sitting there going, so the alternative is Barack Obama? Really? Like that's where you land your airplane? And it just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not glossing over Trump's personal failures. There's serious issues, and I have policy differences over tariffs, and I don't think he's as pro-life as he should have. But the alternative is Kamala Harris, guys. This is a binary choice. And on just about everything, she's on the other side of the issue than I am. I mean, pretty much everything. So let's go to Tony Littleton. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tony.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. I haven't read French's article yet, but this couple different things. The idea about Trump derangement syndrome, that was an attack, a label that was used on Democrats that were obsessed with Trump and his failures and attacking him and so forth. I mean, that's largely been used as something said of Democrats rather than Republicans. And I would argue that it's not Democrats that have TDS. It is MAGA following. And I say that sincerely. 8 years ago, all of us would have had values that we agreed on. We all agreed as Americans. We agreed on certain things, like don't talk about your daughter's breast, and don't say you can attack women, and on and on and on and on. I mean, the military attacks and all of that. We would have all agreed that that's a no-go. But now we don't. As America, we're split. Half of America says that's okay. I don't care.
I don't think Americans say that's okay. I don't think I don't see them going, do more of that. In fact, a lot of Republicans I see on Twitter are going, gosh, I sure wish he would get more control of himself. But they're willing to tolerate it because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are communists.
And that's okay. So communists? and that's another issue.
Yes.
That's another issue. This communist.
Yeah.
All right. So the only people that I've heard make that argument and articulate that at all is Mark Levin, and he is a polemist. I mean, he's impossible. Now, on the flip side, French and a whole bunch of brain trust Republicans have taken the same position that French has, that Trump represents a threat to the democracy, and they believe that. I mean, and what I'm saying is, there's a big group of really strong, smart Republicans who have pulled away from Trump for that fear. I have not seen or heard of a group on the left that has pulled away from the Democrats saying she's a communist. You are saying she's a communist, and it would take 30 minutes to get through that issue. But it's you and Mark Levin.
Most progressives these days are communists.
I know you can say that all you want, and you can talk deep state all you want, but for me, you're out on an island. I have no idea where the hell that comes from, but I do understand that it's your fear of that you will justify Trump and all of his shenanigans. You'll take Trump and all his shenanigans because you see this threat of communism from the left, but you're kind of you're out there with a very small minority.
No, I'm not. Let's look at what communists do. Communists do. They confiscate guns. They attack the church. They try to destroy the family. They want to control.
And nothing you've said is true yet.
And they want
nothing you said is
education for everybody so they can control everybody. Everything I've said. What do you mean? Kamala Harris wants to confiscate guns.
True.
100% she does. They've attacked the church.
You say gun safety is taking away all the guns. That's
what
not
they
true.
want.
We're just going to stay on. Let's just stay on that one. That's not. You've made that up in your head. Your side has made that up. Nobody went after all the guns ever. Even
Kamala
when
Harris
there was
wants
a
to go after all the guns.
No, you say that, and because you say if you say that enough, you believe that. Right. You believe it. All right.
Hey, Tony, let's go to Kamala Harris's website to see her policies.
I'm sure it doesn't say take all the guns away.
It doesn't say anything, Tony. It doesn't say anything. She's the vice president of the United States. She's had 4 years to put together a policy agenda, and her website has nothing with regards to what she believes policy-wise. Nothing. So we have to stitch it together based upon what she says and how she's acted in the past. She's a communist.
Point of clarification, in 2020, the Republican Party had no policies either. They didn't have an official policy platform. So that's not unusual. It's not unusual at all.
No, we did, Bill. We just reaffirmed the 16 policy platform. That's all we did.
Okay.
Don't say we didn't have a policy platform.
Take a look at the one you have right now. There's no real policies. It's all wishes and everything else. But okay, that's fine. Jeff, this is just where we're getting to.
Go to Kamala Harris's website. Just go there and tell me all the policies.
Listen. The communist thing. We're not going to win that. That's what you believe, and I'm saying there's not a whole bunch of Democrats, smart Democrats, that have peeled away and said, she's a communist. We need to pull away to save the Democratic Party. That didn't happen. That's happened on the Republican Party, and for a reason. And I'm going to give you the reason.
All right, Tony, we're just out of time. We're out of time. Thanks. We got to get to a break. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Billy, let's turn a corner here and you choose the news.
All right, yes, a little bit of a palate cleanser. Something that we call You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, where I have scoured the interwebs for mere moments I had this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans to play this fake radio news game. Why? Because the people in charge have no idea this goes on this time of the morning. We have, yeah, oh geez, we've had to hide this, and it's not very good. So again, shh. Gotta be quiet. Don't tell everybody about this. All right, it's just a joke between all of us. Here we go, gentlemen. Blake Olson, Jeff Hunt. Headline number 1, fulfilling a dream. Headline number 2, probe cover, not a probe cover. Headline number 3, doing it for the gram. And headline number 4, employee dismissed for lack of commitment. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Doing it for the gram.
Yeah, we're doing it for the gram. Spanish authorities have arrested a 39-year-old Spanish citizen because he was doing it for the gram. What was he doing? Well, he was damaging 1,000-year-old cave paintings. Yes, he wanted to get the bestest possible picture for his social media. So these cave paintings that are thousands and thousands of years old, they decided to pour water over them, because it makes the colors look better. Also tends to wash the colors away, you asshat.
Oh, boy.
Yes. So kind of an issue that he has damaged the cave paintings because he was doing it for social media. I have a theory that so far regular punishment doesn't work very well. I think we should crowdsource it. We should all get to vote on what he has to do in public. Yes. And it stays, and you know how the internet saves everything? That's the punishment. You want to be famous? You want to get it for the gram? Okay, I got you. I'll cover it for you.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, I have them every once in a while, but that's my only one I'm allowed to do.
I think maybe, really tattoo the things that he destroyed on
that could be good. Yes. That'd be so
always
good.
Remembers it?
Especially if you have to do it on your forehead. Because then everybody sees your mistakes.
There you go. See, we're crowdsourcing.
Yes, we are. Blake Olson, your choice this morning, sir. Fulfilling a dream, probe cover, not a probe cover, or employee dismissed for lack of commitment.
Oh, let's fulfill the dream.
Yes,
Billy.
You have to fulfill the dream. Always go and chase your dream. And that is what a 45-year-old man in Japan recently has done. He has fulfilled his dream of an early retirement. He decided in the early 2000s, when he was in his mid-20s, that this working thing kind of sucks. So how do I escape as quickly as possible? What he did is try to save every single yen he could hang on to. He lived incredibly frugally, only buying used clothes, used furniture. He lived in the company dorms. Yes, like our college dorms, but sponsored by the company. Rent is much lower. It's communal living, and everything still smells like feet, but still saves him some money. He also bought the most affordable meal that he could based on nutrition for it. So he ate the same thing every meal for nearly 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he
Good
even
for him.
Yep, on the internet he adopted the nickname the man who will definitely resign. And he proved all of his fans true. In fact, he said, and when they was asked, how did he keep going all that time? He said, simple. In my spare time, I watched inspirational movies, prison films. Kept me in perspective. He said that was it. As long as he had a perspective.
Well, at least my life's better than that.
Exactly. He was like, this is what I'm going through, guys. And
That's cool.
Not as bad. So yeah, but he's out, and I'm kind of jealous.
Story.
Yeah. All righty, Jeff
That's
Hunt,
awesome.
Final choice this morning, sir. Probe cover, not a probe cover, or employee dismissed for lack of commitment.
Let's do the probe cover.
Yes, probe
Not a
cover,
probe cover.
not a probe cover. That's been an unfortunate discovery by the Sexual Health and Family Planning Act, the Shift Act, out of Australia. A Canberra sexual health organization that's been giving out free condoms since January has just realized, wow, those aren't condoms. Not at all. Even though the packaging looks the same, they are actually lubricated probe covers that they use for ultrasounds. So there are some gentlemen out there that have some real questions about size and a bunch of other stuff. The best part about it is on the wrapper, it says, I'll see if I can get it on the screen, lubricated probe cover. So technically, it could actually lead you to believe, well, maybe they're just calling it this now. I don't know. Maybe I missed a meeting. Maybe it's now my probe. Yeah. So again, led to probably some awkward conversations, but they're actually giving out emails and talking to people going, if you got it, don't wrap the weasel. It's probably not going to work. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. As always, Jeff and Blake are big winners, and I'm a giant loser. Back to you, sir.
All right, we'll continue with this conversation Maybe
Really?
he'll
This one?
change directions. You listen on the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. 2 words. Probe, cover.
Well, and if you're just tuning in, you know this show is not boring. I mean, if you missed the last hour, you definitely missed some fireworks. We're taking on Monday right. Good morning, Denver. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news with Blake Olson, Kamala Harris has got a new economic plan. Yes, it's not on her website yet. In fact, no policy plans are on her website yet, but during a rally over the weekend, she wanted to not tax tips, which is interesting because Donald Trump came out with that plan earlier. And some headlines from our liberal media outlets when Donald Trump came out with this plan. Why Donald Trump's plan to stop taxing tips is a lame political stunt. Rolling Stone, Trump's plan to end taxes on tips isn't fooling labor leaders. I wonder what the headlines for Kamala Harris are going to be now that she's adopted that plan. We'll get into that and more. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff and Billy. 62 and cloudy, expecting a high of 86 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: an investigation is ongoing following an officer-involved shooting in Thornton. It happened last night near 97th and Washington Street, where police say a reported shooting turned into a barricaded suspect situation. At around 10 o'clock, police announced the incident had escalated to an officer-involved shooting. Police say a suspect was taken into custody and that a man was taken to a hospital with serious injuries.
Kamala Harris is whatever she says she is, but I believe importantly that President Trump is right that she's a chameleon. She pretends to be one thing in front of one audience. She pretends to be something different in front of another audience. Look, Dana, she's not running a political campaign. She's running a movie. She only speaks to voters behind a teleprompter. Everything is scripted. She doesn't have her policy positions out there. She hasn't answered why she wanted to ban fracking, but now she doesn't. She wanted to fund police, but now she doesn't. She wanted to open the border, but now she doesn't.
JD Vance, it's day 22, and Kamala Harris continues to hide out from reporters. She hasn't had a press conference since President Biden was forced out by Democrats, and she was installed. VP candidate Tim Walz continues to be exposed. This press conference from a few years ago of the Minnesota governor who stood up in front of people. He leads people to believe, and voters, that he was in uniform at Bagram. He was there as a member of Congress.
I stood one night in the dark of night on the tarmac at Bagram and watched a military ramp ceremony. And if you've seen it, which these folks, many have, unfortunately, you don't leave the same. And it makes you wonder, what are we doing? What are we trying to get to?
He mentioned that his daughter was 2 and he came back and she was 3. So that's what led people to believe that he was in uniform at the time. President Biden did an interview over the weekend on national television, and so did Nancy Pelosi. And it looks like and sounds like she's quickly headed to Biden land soon.
Well, it's been, again, his legacy as a preeminent president, and it's hard to, he's right there among the top few.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think it's time to go to the salon now. Speaking of salons, what is up with the Secret Service? Kamala Khan's Secret Service team forced to issue an apology after they broke into a salon in Massachusetts while Harris was at a fundraiser. Here's a little audio. You can hear it. A female agent was seen duct taping a camera outside the business while agents picked the lock. Once again, that's her duct taping the camera. The agents reportedly used the bathroom for over 2 hours. They didn't even have the audacity to ask for permission, said the owner. They just helped themselves. The shop owner said that the Secret Service admitted that everything was done wrong. They were supposed to tape my camera. They were not supposed to tape my camera without permission, nor were they supposed to enter the building without permission. I mean, this is crazy.
They took her candy too.
And her candy. Yes, is that what it was? It a jar or a bowl of
candy? They ate her candy. They
Wow.
broke into her store. Bro, what is going on? It's like it's not. So I imagine that the Secret Service people are relatively intelligent, just like in a universe of intelligence. They're somewhere, right? And they know they're under incredible scrutiny right now.
Yes.
Incredible. Like
yes.
the world spotlight
right.
is on
especially
you.
The female Secret Service. They were two females, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mean, Kim Cheadle and all that, and Ronald McDonald Rowe. God, can you believe that?
I think boys in a fraternity have more intelligence at this point.
Yes.
Where it's like if you've been busted and you know you're on the short list with the school and you know the school's got an eye on you, maybe your ragers aren't quite as big. Right now, they're just like, well, let's break into a business. And I've never understood the people that tape up the camera either. Like, you don't think they're going to just rewind it to right when they can see your face?
I'm so confused by the whole story. I mean, it's just Keystone Cop idiots. Right?
That is exactly what it is.
I mean,
Blake.
Okay, so they needed to use the can, right? Is that what the problem was?
Yes. Well, at least that's where it started. Yeah.
So they could have called, they could have figured out, and they break in. How often does this happen, do you think, Jeff? Do you think it happens a lot?
Well, if it's happening this publicly and this blatantly, it probably is. It's one of those things where, now that everybody's seeing it, you're seeing it, all the stuff they did before.
That's horrible. So, I mean, it's just another reason why you need to
do you remember when Trump. You remember when the Secret Service got popped for throwing ragers after the presidents would leave?
Yes.
And they'd have these
10 years ago?
Yeah, they'd have these massive hookups and other things that they would do.
That was Secret Service. I thought that was FBI, but
maybe it was a combination of somebody, but
CIA, whatever. Wow. I mean, this is just incredible. How embarrassing. What a joke.
They've got to obviously clean out a lot. And I've got a friend who's in the Secret or was in the Secret Service, and I've invited him on the show multiple times, and he just won't talk. I think that there's some systemic rot in that agency right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Wow, it's amazing. All right, the Broncos beat the Colts 34-30, first preseason game. Rockies over the Braves 9-8 at Arizona tonight. U.S., they're coming home from one of the most successful summer games in history. Team USA won 126 medals overall, their highest total since capturing 174 in LA in 1984. And a lot of us remember that summer. 58 in Castle Rock, 60 in Thornton, and 63 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill show. So Kamala Harris is indicating she has at least one policy, but is it just a copycat from Donald Trump? Wall Street Journal over the weekend. Harris calls for no taxes on tips, borrowing a Trump idea. Proposal came during a rally in Las Vegas where the vice president is battling Republican nominee in support from service workers. Vice President Kamala Harris on Saturday called for ending taxes on tips, attempting to seize a policy idea advanced by Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Harris's announcement during a rally in Las Vegas comes as she prepares to roll out parts of her broader platform this week. Harris's campaign has experienced a surge in popularity in recent weeks, and her tax proposal seeks to further blunt Trump's populist economic appeal. It is my promise to everyone here, when I'm president, we will continue our fight for working families of America, including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers, Harris said. The idea could prove popular in the swing state of Nevada, which is populated by casino and other service industry workers who rely on tips. Trump in June had his own rally in Las Vegas and floated a plan to eliminate taxes on tips, an idea he later said that he came up with after having a conversation with a waitress in Las Vegas. Trump narrowly lost Nevada in 2016 and 2020. Republicans also included this in their platform that they adopted at the RNC convention. I want you to listen to a little audio. Billy, I think we have this audio queued up. This is Trump in June and Kamala in August.
Because when I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
So is Kamala just copying Trump? And is this a good idea? Well, leftist blogs, when Trump came out with his idea, said why Donald Trump's plan to stop taxing tips is a lame political stunt. It wouldn't help most tipped workers, just their corporate bosses. Rolling Stone's Trump's plan to end taxes on tips isn't fooling labor leaders. Republicans are pushing to end federal taxes on tipped wages, but industry leaders say it will do little to address the needs of workers. Billy, is Kamala just copying Kamala?
Yeah, you're copying Trump. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And again, not a bad strategy. And the weird part about this is we talked, again, a couple of weeks ago, but this is why our listeners are here, because we have conversations and explore things that other shows don't want to and don't see on the horizon. And a couple of weeks ago, you and I talked about the idea of Kamala taking Trump's most popular immigration planks and using them in her campaign. And the conversation that we had about it, because you're a political strategist, is if you feel this is or a solid, good, positive argument for your constituency or your potential voters, then take it off the table from your opponent, because now you have to make that voting choice based on something other than no taxes on tips. That's what Kamala is doing. She's playing defense by playing offense. She, for whatever reason, thinks this is a decent message for parts of her constituency. So she takes it. For me, I understand the idea of me too. Yeah, but for strategy, it's good, because if you're on the Trump team right now, you go, well, crap. I mean, we can point out and say she wants to do it too. But now if you do that and say she's just adopting what we want, she's like us, now you've given the potential voter permission to look at her as an alternative. If you say that she is just doing the same thing that we are, well, then what else is she doing that I might like? It's a very dangerous thing to point out and say, wait, they're taking our stuff. They're taking our stuff. I think he'll do it. And I think Democrats would do it if the shoe was on the other foot. And the other part of this is, as we know with Harris, especially over the past 6 years, she has changed positions on a large number of things. She has changed and modified what she believes, the immigration being the number one thing. It's an interesting play, but yeah, she did it. But I don't think there's necessarily going to be any harm on it. So for me, I think it's smart strategy.
So when does she run into the critique that she's not a leader? Right. So if you're the leader of the free world and you are a bold enough leader to become the president of the United States, which is like the top leader.
Yeah.
Well, maybe in this case, it's the person that's willing to do the most bidding to the corporate bosses that actually control this country.
Touche.
You and I both agree on. Billy.
Yes. And Elon says thank you. Yes. and so does Bezos. Bezos is high-fiving at the same time. It's the same thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So is she sending, to me, she's sending a message that she's not a leader.
That's interesting. In what way?
One, she doesn't have any policy plans up yet. She's not new to this. She was the vice president of the United States for 4 years. And also when she says stuff, this is what really drives me crazy, because this is what tells me we're into leftist loony land in our country, is when politicians like Kamala Harris say on day one, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, you are already in office. And Democrats in deep blue cities do this all the time.
Yeah.
Right. They promise stuff that they can never deliver. And so you end up in this kind of retro cycle of things are at some point things are going to get better, but they never do. And we're going to get into this with this sales tax increase that this people of Denver are about to face. But leftist politicians do this all the time, right? It's this, they sometimes create the problems that they're trying to solve. So they play both arsonist and fireman, but you're just in this constant cycle of at some point things will get better. And they're always, and for whatever reason, Democrat voters are like, yeah, we'll keep voting you in as opposed to trying Republican. This is why you haven't had a Democrat elected in Denver since like the 60s, right? So Kamala, in my mind, is running as if that, and I think that's in part because every election she has won when she was at the top of the ticket, not as vice president, but when she was attorney general, she was senator, when she was the district attorney for San Francisco, was always in a heavily progressive area. So she's running as that progressive. She has been in elected office for a long time. Why is it she just now coming up with these ideas? And why is it so hard for her to put out a policy plan? She could have put out some basic stuff the first day. Billy, you and I could come up with some basic policies that you and I agree on in about 3 hours and put it on a website. She's now been the nominee for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And she hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
There are a couple of reasons. And I think there's a couple of reasons. It's a fair critique. I'm not sure about the leadership. I understand where you're going with that one. The thing that I think what people would push back on the leadership argument is that leadership doesn't mean I'm the only one that has the ideas. And if I was going to strategize Kamala's response to not showing leadership because she's taking, Trump's tax plan or taking Trump's no tips or whatever it is, it would be, what you'd say is, well, sometimes even people I disagree with have good ideas, and I'm going to do this. So the idea of, and that's how you would turn it. I'm not saying that's what she's doing. I'm just saying, how do you market it and sell it to the actual voters? I think voters oftentimes vote against their own self-interest for a variety of reasons. And I also think that both Republicans and Democrats do the arsonist firefighter thing in certain ways at times. I'm not saying universally, but at times that we can find politicians on both sides that do that and play that game. And I think the reason that Kamala Harris doesn't have any policies on her website is because right now she doesn't have to. And that's because the Republican Party, especially the Trump campaign, is doing a really, really, really bad job. And this is why. They are trying to play identity politics, and they are trying to swift boat walls rather than focusing on the fact that she has no ideas. Voters routinely, again, we know they oftentimes choose emotion rather than policy, but one of the critiques on the Trump campaign is that he's not talking policy, that if you talk policy, there are some very persuadable voters out there. But as long as you're calling names and saying this guy isn't a real soldier and you're not really black and you're not this, that you're not talking policy, it would be an incredibly strong move for Republicans right now, and especially the Trump campaign, to say she doesn't have any solid policies. She's still trying to figure this out, and she's just going to do X, Y, and Z. And how do we know she's not going to have these? They should be pulling past policies from her and bringing them forward and saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? For me, the weakness is inside the Republican Party and the Trump campaign. And the example I'll give you is on the press conference. That is a really nice area of attack. Is it long-term? No. Does it sort of hurt right now? Yes, absolutely. And Trump campaign and the Republicans should be pushing that right now. However, you've been in the strategy side of this. You understand the Harris side. You've been in those type, not Democrat rooms, but you've been in those strategy rooms. They are going to squeeze this Harris momentum for as long as they think it is possible. They are going to delay sitting down for a formal interview until they feel the cacophony of sound is beginning to drown out Kamala's message and her momentum forward. That's going to be the tipping point. Until we get there, there's going to be no interviews. And I think we can do it based on past behavior, based on her behavior on the border. Until there was a really, really loud cry, she didn't even show up to, as you said, shake babies and kiss hands, which I really like. But that's what I think. That's what I think, man.
I also think that the Democrats know that her interview at the media is going to be a total disaster.
Really?
She'll struggle through. She won't be clear. It's going to give Republicans every press talking point that they need to go out there and hammer her. Because she's just not good. Experience. Yeah. She's just not good in front of the media. Remember the grilling she got for not going to the border? And her response was, well, I haven't been to Europe either.
Yeah.
She's not good on her feet. So I think the Democrats are trying to protect her. But the reason Republicans have to swift boat Tim Walz here is to blunt the strategy that the Democrats had bringing him in. So if you remember, the Democrat strategy with Tim Walz was, we're going to bring in a guy who appeals to Midwesterners.
Yeah.
Right. He's Minnesota. He's a Midwesterner. He's a military guy. He's more of a centrist. He's not, but they're going to say he's a centrist, all that stuff, and try to appeal there. I think they've been incredibly effective pointing out the lies that he's made about his service in the military, the idea that he was deployed and, going to Afghanistan, Iraq when he hasn't been there. So going after that blunted Kamala Harris and her campaign's effort to appeal to the Midwest. I think it was incredibly effective.
I don't think so at all. I think it's been a waste of time, because I don't see it getting sticky anywhere outside of conservative circles. Conservative circles aren't going to vote for the Harris-Walz ticket anyway. It has lots of traction inside of conservative circles. It's not sticky anywhere else. Nobody is taking the bait at all. Well, I'm just saying that's what I'm reading. The
guy lied about his service. That doesn't go well.
What do you mean by lied about it? Tell me again.
He said he was deployed. Multiple times he said he was deployed when he was running.
I don't think he did.
He has all these statements about being in Afghanistan and Iraq.
He has
getting those mixed up. And his challenge coin has that he hands out to people has the wrong. Says that he was a sergeant major on it, which he never was. He never completed that.
No, he was. Hang on a sec. He was elevated to that position, and he didn't complete the coursework. However, he was referred to that as a sergeant major. And here's what I'll ask: is this? This is the idea: is I will ask any enlisted person that if your commanding officer is a sergeant major that hasn't completed the coursework yet, do you turn to them and say, "No, you're not"? Do you tell them that? No, you don't. You don't challenge their rank. You don't tell them they're not that rank.
Man.
No, I'm just telling you, as an
brother.
enlisted person, I had a conversation with an enlisted person, and they said you don't challenge that person's rank in that situation. You're not sitting there and saying you didn't take this rank.
That's not the point. The point isn't that your enlisted people challenge you or not challenge you. It's whether or not he actually achieved the rank.
He did, though. He was given the rank. He didn't finish the course.
He didn't finish the course.
Hang on a sec. That's not what I said. He was moved up to the rank and given the rank. The people that were enlisted under him at the time, even though he didn't complete the coursework, referred to him as sergeant major. That's what happened.
And this often referred to himself in his retirement as a sergeant major, which he didn't.
Yep. And that
he
often
never
happens.
Completed it.
And I know, but that often happens with retirees. That happens often for not completing the coursework.
Yeah, I know. It's called a retirement rank.
Yes, and that happens. Yes, and that happens.
So
again,
this
is why it's not going to stick.
Absolutely going to stick. Yes, it is because
it's not going to stick.
This will.
No, it's not going to stick at all.
Well, here's the other thing that I have, Billy. Here's the question that I have: is this leftist media outlets? So Mother Jones saying Donald Trump's plan on stopping tax tips is a lame political stunt. Rolling Stone saying his plan to end taxes on tips isn't going to fool the labor leaders. You think they're all going to change their tune now that Kamala's embracing it? Did I lose Billy? Is Billy taking?
No, I'm sorry. Call? Yeah, sorry. What was that?
I wanted to talk to you about the liberal headlines.
Yeah.
Mother Jones saying Trump's plan to stop taxing tips is a lame political stunt. That this isn't going to fool labor leaders. This does little to address the needs of workers. You think they're now going to change their tune?
Oh, absolutely.
Now that Kamala's pointing.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. That's what they're going to do. Of course. 110%. Yes. That's absolutely what I would expect. Yes. That's exactly what I am. Because you can see in their original conversations that they were more political in nature than actually dealing with the subject of the taxes and the tips and everything else. They were carrying water against Donald Trump. Absolutely. And they are going to change. All of a sudden, this is going to be a phenomenally good thing for workers. And it's stupid. And it shows why, again, people lose trust in media outlets specifically because of that. I one time really enjoyed and respected some of the reporting inside of Rolling Stone, but that's
when
decades
Matt Taibbi
ago.
was there.
Yeah, well, it was decades ago, even before Taibbi, decades and decades ago. Now they've become too much advocacy for me, regardless if I agree or disagree. Sometimes I agree with some of the stuff, sometimes I don't, but there's way too much advocacy inside of their journalism, and that's why I no longer have a subscription. But yeah, they're going to switch. Absolutely. Mother Jones, absolutely too. Mother Jones will go hard into the idea that how this is going to lift up the common working person and that. Yeah, everything you can think about being pro-labor, that's what Mother Jones is going to put out. And they're going to conveniently forget what they said about Trump. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking of media in this state, I'm trying to get Danielle Jurinsky on to respond to Kyle Clark. Come on, Danielle. We'd love to have you join us over this Aurora gang issue, because that's a brewing battle taking place there. Great text message here from Janet. Is this political jujitsu? Taking the opponent's energy, accelerating it, and using it against them to your advantage. Do you think that Kamala Harris is doing political jujitsu against Donald Trump and taking his plan to not tax tips, which I thought was brilliant initially when it came out, because I love any effort not to tax anything. I just think that the only time this government actually shrinks is when we starve the beast. And so we've got to stop any effort to tax it at all. But do you think it's a form of political jujitsu, or is Kamala just copying Kamala? Is that her new name? She just, whatever Donald Trump does that's right, is she just copies? Is that a benefit to Kamala? Or is it, in my opinion, it showcases her as a weak leader if she's just copying all of Donald Trump's ideas? Give me a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. Look, I want to talk to you about QC Kinetics. Pain from arthritis is just awful. It's bone on bone, constant pain. It robs you of so much of the stuff you love to do. But there are effective ways to deal with that pain. And I'm not talking about drugs or surgery. Listen, there are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief. And the place to go? QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics uses cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. If you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery and pain pills are no longer your only option. Learn how QC Kinetics can use advanced regenerative medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. That's important, because I had a family member just get their knee replaced, the whole knee replaced. And he is out for like 6 weeks. In the first 2 weeks, he could hardly walking around with a cane, all that stuff. Why would you go through that? And he said to me the other day, this should always be a last resort. Surgery is a last resort. Try QC Kinetics. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are ready to help you get your life back with regenerative, restorative cellular treatments for your achy joints. This is the future of medicine. Call for a free consultation now, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986, or QCkinetics.com, with locations in Aurora, Superior, Colorado Springs, and Highlands Ranch. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Kamala Harris's plan to end taxing on tips. This is something that Donald Trump talked about in June. Is she just now copying Kamala? Is that what she does? She has no plans on her own website.
Oh, that's good.
No policies. So, she's just taking Donald Trump's. By the way, in a second, we'll get into this. Donald Trump this morning releasing his 20 promises to make America great again. But let's go to the phone lines first. Let's talk with Michael Denver. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. What do you think of Trump and Kamala's plan to end taxing on tips?
Well, obviously, if you're in the tip industry, that would be a wonderful, thing to get. My son works in a restaurant, and he loves the idea. So, yeah. But I actually just wanted to call real quick because I'm an enlisted guy. I'm retired. And I just wanted to point out, everyone's got their own, 2 cents worth. And I feel like that this guy from Minnesota that picked his VP, plenty of times. I retired as an E7 and started first class. And lots of times I was told you're going to be acting first sergeant. He just was an acting sergeant major. He was not a sergeant major. He was not promoted into that. He didn't finish his coursework. So to say you're a sergeant major would have not been given that title and orders saying that, then he was never a sergeant major. And that's super disrespectful. And to sit there and say that he went to Iraq and Afghanistan, where I've been to both, also disrespectful. And I just completely disagree with the premise of anybody who says that he can claim the title. He can't. The deal is that, like, I was offered my E8 before I left, but you have to complete 2 years of service if you accept that position. He did not do that. So he decided to jump ship before the deployment, and that's fine. He served his time, and I got no problem with his record, but you can't make claims of things that you did not do.
But, I understand that, Michael, but he was actually in Afghanistan, not in combat. But he was there. The story that Hugh Hewitt was playing earlier today about him talking about standing at Bagram Air Force Base and watching, the caskets of the soldiers. That happened when he was in Congress, not in military.
Okay, well then he claimed he was carrying a rifle in combat in Afghanistan, and that never happened.
I'm not sure he's ever said in Afghanistan. I think he just talked about the weapons of war I carried in war. I don't think he actually said.
He's never been in war.
Oh no, he hasn't, and he's apologized.
He definitely leaned towards it, and he definitely put out that little feeler that that's where he was at. And come on.
I understand, Michael. I get the critique, but we also have to think about the people on the other side. J.D. Vance, who at one point said that Trump was going to be America's Hitler potentially, and now was his running mate. Trump is out there saying a lot of stuff right now. He's claiming recently in some of his rallies, he has claimed that he passed a VA bill that was passed under Obama. That's going to be the problem with this, that even if Walz is saying that he had a rank, and again, my understanding is he was given that rank and functioned in that rank, but didn't complete the 3 years of service of the coursework in order to retire with the rank. And so, okay, fair enough. But the argument that he's been misidentifying himself isn't necessarily going to gain as much traction as it would in a regular political cycle, given his opponents. That's the tough part in the cell.
I agree with that. I think, and you're right. The part where I see that, like, I have friends who are, I'm independent, but I probably lean way more right. But I've got friends who are Democrats in the military, and they're not happy with the fact that he's made the claims he has on the military side. So there are veterans who aren't going to take that lightly.
Well, I got a question for you. Here's a text message that came in. He had the opportunity. This is Tim Walz. He had the opportunity to choose to continue to serve with the men and women he had been with for a quarter century when they went off to war, or he could choose to run for Congress. The guy ran for Congress. Give us some insight. You served in the military for years. You've built those relationships. He had the opportunity at that point to go into the most intense moment that group of troops had ever been into, and instead he chose to run for Congress. Does that ring true with you? as he kind of abandoned his people?
It kind of depends. I mean, I've had some leaders where I was glad they didn't go with us. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to say where his heart was. I mean, if he was at the end of his career, 24, at almost 22 years, I was done. And him at 24, I can see he served, I feel, his time. But to sit there and claim that he was sergeant major and that he, was in Afghanistan, or whether or not he was there running for Congress, who knows? But some people don't look lightly on somebody who, jumped ship so they didn't have to deploy. Usually, I'm kind of surprised he didn't deploy, because sergeant majors aren't on the front line. So even if he would have went, and field artillery also, he never would have been on the front line.
Yeah.
So he may have had his own reasons for not going, and that's okay. Just don't say you're something that you're not.
And that's totally fair, Michael. And I think, and again, I am not in the military, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he would have retired. The sergeant major would have been an E9, I think, in the ranking system. And from the veterans I've talked to, nobody's like, okay, if we didn't have an E9, if we're going into combat, that wasn't necessarily, they're not the people that are out there in the combat, as you pointed out. And I think that's kind of important. The other part that I think is lost in this discussion, is one of the reasons that I don't think this charge is going to be as sticky as Republicans want it to be, is the branch of service. That's going to be a buffer for Tim Walz. He served in the National Guard. And we have to understand, the National Guard serves here. The National Guard was deployed during the Iraq War, and Walz was in the National Guard for 2 years of the Iraq War. He was deployed because George Bush signed an executive order allowing the deployment of the National Guard on foreign soil. That's why that happened. So the buffer that Walz is going to have in some of this conversation is the fact that he was with the Guard. He wasn't with the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. He wasn't with the branch that is expected to deploy into a foreign theater. So the idea, again, not saying that he's running from combat or anything else, but the expectation on a guardsman is, in my mind, a bit different than the expectation of someone in the other branches of service. Just like, I'm just hoping the Coast Guard can swim. That's about all I got for them. Beyond that, I'm not really impressed. Yeah.
Just a caveat, because I got to go to work. I wasn't going to call, but you guys pull me in every time.
I appreciate it.
But I was National Guard, and when I deployed in 2003, I was with the Guard unit, and almost 60 or over 60% of the fighting force over there was reserves and Guard.
Yeah.
They were easy to deploy. So I went. So, and I was with National Guard when I went to Afghanistan. So it's here nor there. I don't think he ducked going. For like you said, my biggest fear, if they'd have told me like, hey, Sergeant Major's not going with you guys to combat. Okay. Well, I need a guy walking around telling me to stay off the grass. I mean, come on. So I'll let you guys go. Good talk,
Michael. Great call.
Thanks, man, and thanks for your service,
great call. Appreciate it. Thanks for your service.
You went to places, Michael, that I'm not sure I could, and that's why, because I'm not wired that way, man. I just am not. I have so much respect for the people that put on the military and raise their hand, because I know that I'm not wired that way. That's just not.
Really,
part
you're
of
absolutely. You know what? Yeah. We could have had achieved world peace if they just handed you an M16 and sent you out there.
I'm not sure about that, but no. If you want to create chaos on the battlefield, and
you're not going to take orders. Just let him go by himself.
Exactly.
You want Jason Bourne.
You want chaos on the battlefield against the enemy. I'm your guy. I'm a guy. But if you want me to follow the rules, ooh, that's going to be a little sticky.
No,
that's going to be tougher for me.
Yeah. So much. Look, if you're considering selling your home, go with a team that's not only going to give you top level service, but will also help you earn the most from your sale of your home than any other agent. Gay Ribble is a proven agent that gets more for her sellers because they have ready buyers looking for a home in your area. They don't just make this claim. They can sit down and actually show you their list of over 14,700 ready to go, pre-approved, let's buy a home buyers. This gives you an immediate advantage. Sure, you can hire any agent to sell your home, But isn't it all about how much you put into your pocket after closing? The Empower Home team specializes in making sure you make the most amount of money. They will sell your home at your price, or Gay will buy it guaranteed. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Billy. You know I was out of town last week.
I know you were.
I'm back home, but I'm a little sick.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to stay at home today. But I got you something.
What'd you get?
I got you your own.
No.
Look at that.
No,
you see
got
that
me
on the camera?
Oh my God, he got me monogrammed Mickey Mouse ears. Holy crap. Okay, my friend, listen, I got to tell you this. I don't think you understand how much that means to me, because I got that pair of like monogrammed Mickey Mouse ears my very first trip to Disneyland with my grandmother when I was probably 10 or 11. And moving out for college, I found them in the back of a closet and they were all bent and blech, and so they looked horrible. So I had to throw them out. And I have the Mickey Mouse wizard hat and stuff that we for our Disney trips. I've gotten the fun hats, but the one thing I have neglected to do is to go back to my childhood and get me those ears. Dude, I am going to wear those ears. I am going to wear those ears. I am so happy. That is so kind of you. Thank you. Oh, that is such a surprise.
You go.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm finally feeling better. We'll get those into the studio.
Thank you.
For
that
you.
Is so special.
All
thank
right,
you.
Let's go to Marty on the line. You're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, gentlemen. Now, Billy, this is outrageous. Now, I've let you know before your ability to defend the indefensible. It's breathtaking, although it's skillfully done. I'm not going to lie. It's aggravating and it prompts a lot of dialogue, but to suggest that Tim Walz, to negate all the awful things you get with Tim Walz because he taught a civics class that we have no idea the quality of his. You know how many teachers are actually in there just as activists? And so because of his
Marty, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there right there. The conversation about the civics class was based on knowledge of the Constitution. And I submit that if we put a civics test in front of all four of our current candidates, Trump, Vance, Harris, and Walz, Walz clears the bar higher than anybody else. He gets the best grade, hands down. Also, I understand you don't know how the quality of teacher he was. He did win Teacher of the Year as a civics teacher in Minnesota. So we have some indication of his quality. Just saying. We've got that information as well. Go ahead.
But what they reward in Minnesota is tampons in the boys' room, excuse me.
Yeah, but that's not true either. That's okay.
Oh, come on now. That's the most extreme state when it comes to this. But here's where we're not.
No, but that's not what he signed. That's not what Billy signed. That's okay.
He signed that menstruating persons, which is a cute way to say put him in the men's room. He signed that, Billy. That's not in dispute.
He signed it and allowed the school districts and the individual schools to make the choice, which is an odd play when I hear from conservatives that they are mad that Walz signed a bill they're upset about, but then the schools were allowed the choice. The largest school district in Minnesota has said they don't have a single tampon dispenser in any boy's bathroom across the entire school district. That's the largest school district in Minnesota. So again, he allowed the choice for it to happen. He didn't mandate it, which again, not the narrative that's been played on Tim Walz. Continue.
Okay. So again, we're still not coming to the honorable part of Tim Walz. And this is what we're getting blown away by, is that the propaganda machine surrounding Kamala Harris and Tim Walz it's at all-time highs right now. Do you want to defend the fact that she won't take questions, live bullets from the media after becoming essentially the most popular presidential candidate in the history of the world, because it was Donald Trump? And there's propaganda polls that suggest she's winning now. And you're buying into it, Billy. You're not rejecting that as propaganda.
Because, Marty, you're coming to a conclusion that aren't necessarily belayed by the facts. We discussed the press conferences earlier. It's a strategy point. Until it becomes a pain point for the campaign, you hold off as long as possible for momentum. It's strategy, man. That's all it is. Thanks for the phone call.
Right. Appreciate the call, Marty. When we come back, Trump's 20 core promises just released. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
We all know Billy walked around high school claiming to be the master debater.
Oh, yes, it might have. Yes, that may have been a joke.
I picture you walking down the hallways right now claiming
absolutely.
that. With the song playing.
Oh yeah, with the thing is on the speech and debate thing. Yeah, we did that all the time because we were juvenile teenagers in high school. Of course, we're going to make that joke over and over and over and over, and it never got old at that time because you know how that is.
And apparently, it didn't get old for Mike Myers either.
I know. And every time I hear that open, I giggle because again, inside I'm a 6th grader.
Well, it is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, August 12th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. But hey, it's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning trying to defend its Constitution from the radical leftists and communists trying to destroy it. We're glad to have you participating because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Feel free to give us a call or text in on the 710 KNUS app, or give us a call on 303-696-1971. This is where Denver's voice is heard. Any of the other stations out there, you're just going to get little pro-law monologues going on out there, and here we want you to be a part of the conversation. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news, a little bit later in the show, the Tina Peters trial. I always revert back in my head to Stephen Tubbs calling her Peanut Teeters.
Me too. Me too, all the time. It's great.
The Tina Peters trial update coming from Jimmy Sangenberger. Yes, Jimmy will be joining us. He's been following this case, doing wonderful updates in the Gazette on it. So we'll get the latest on his analysis of the court case. And also want to give you Donald Trump's just released this morning 20 core promises to make America great again. Billy, you remember when we did our list of demands for Mike Johnston?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Maybe we should do Jeff and Billy's 20 core promises to make America great again.
Oh, that could be good.
That would be fun. All right.
Yeah,
well, we'll get to Trump's
really
here
fun.
In just a second.
Yeah, although
Blake
mine is
Olson,
going to be free snakes. That's going to be the problem, though. So we're going to have to get that in there somewhere.
I sent Billy this video on Instagram the other day of this guy walking around just asking people to hold a snake.
Yeah, and it was fake.
And it was an actual snake. It wasn't, it stopped going there. Your mind shouldn't go there. All right. But he was asking people to hold it, his pet snake, and they, to a T, every single one of them flipped out.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you 95% of America is freaked out by snakes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They are. Absolutely. And Blake can join us. I'll bring his microphone up here. Yes, they are. They're absolutely freaked out. And I get pushed back when I share it on regular social media. That's why I belong to specific snake groups. And you should see the number of times people are sharing. I'm sharing this here because nobody else understands. That's exactly it. We understand that we are very, very weird people and that not a lot of people enjoy this. So that's it. My favorite is when people go, "You have how many snakes?" "Yes, I have this. I have 8. And they're like, "I'm never coming to your house." I'm like, they're not wandering around like the cats and the dog. They're not just, I don't just leave the snakes wander around. It's not, we're not doing Indiana Jones here. You're not going to have to challenge and get to the, jump over the snakes in order to get to the kitchen. That's not how this works. They're in enclosures. You don't even have to see them if you don't want to.
You're a master snaker.
Yes.
I mean, you know how to take care of them. They stay in one room.
Here's the real awkward part. But again, when we're talking about double entendres is people that have been listening understand that a few of my snakes have some very, very unique genetics. And they're albinos, but they produce a little bit of pigment. In the California king snake, that means they turn purple. Understand the looks you ask somebody if they want to see your purple snake. Or you say, "Have you ever seen a purple snake?" Again, you really have to preface that entire question and conversation. You can't just lead with that because, oh boy, it's a really difficult conversation with a police officer later. Yeah.
Is it better than an albino snake, though?
And we're not even going to talk about how many eyes it has. I'm just going to leave that one away. We'll not do this because then I'm going to get suspended again.
I'm so lost right now.
I do that so often. You have no idea. My kids doing that all the time. I lost you. Yes, exactly. That's kind of my thing. I apologize. Okay, I'll sit back here in the corner. I'll collect myself and you guys can continue.
All right. I guess, Jeff, did you hand
we'll
it to
turn
me?
it, we'll turn it to you. Blake Olson to thankfully take us in a new direction.
Thanks, Jeff. 65 and cloudy. Expecting a high of 86 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast. Coming up, our top story.
Think of this. Every other time the Ku Klux Klan's been involved, they wore hoods, so they're not identified. Under his presidency, they came out of those woods with no hoods, knowing they had an ally. That's how I read it. They knew they had an ally in the White House. And he stepped up for them.
Wow. Says the man who utilized the KKK top member Robert Byrd. President Biden gives an interview over the weekend, but Kamala Harris is still playing the rope-a-dope, prevent defense, hasn't talked to the media or reporters for 22 days. It worked for Biden along with broken sewer pipes in Atlanta. Hey, maybe it'll work for her. VP candidate J.D. Vance says there's a whole lot of issues that need to be discussed and problems to fix.
We don't want to go to war with China, but certainly they're an adversary. I mean, they know, for example, the Chinese know that they're manufacturing tons of fentanyl. They're letting come into our country. Kamala Harris has done nothing about this. She should apply diplomatic and economic leverage over the Chinese to stop manufacturing this fentanyl, which then comes into the Mexican drug cartels, which they then ship into our country.
The United States has designated
this is
some
a
of these groups
this is a
and pressed the
scandal.
Chinese government.
Yeah, Dana Bash making certain to cover for the left there. VP candidate, none of your damn business, Tim Walz, who's in your business if you're not wearing a mask during COVID, continues to be exposed. This press conference from a few years ago of the Minnesota governor who leads people to believe that he was in uniform and active in Bagram.
I stood one night in the dark of night on the tarmac at Bagram and watched a military ramp ceremony. And if you've seen it, which these folks, many have, unfortunately, you don't leave the same. And it makes you wonder, what are we doing? What are we trying to get to?
Right before that, he talked about how his daughter was 2 and then he came back and she was 3. So a lot of people feel like he's lying there again. Commerce City.
Well, and he lied about his DUI, which we haven't gotten to on this news station yet.
Yeah, that was in, I think, 95, I believe.
Yeah. Got popped for DUI, said he wasn't drinking and driving. In fact, he was.
Yep. And, the people in his battalion, they were not happy with him, still aren't.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea? I was like, well, for Pete's sake, this guy quit. And if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
That's Tom Behrens, who's a farmer and led the battalion. And he, on his silos on his farm, he has these huge signs talking about walls. This is years ago. It's like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I've actually been watching this because of the Minnesota YouTube channel that I watch. Now I can't even think of what it is. They did the documentary on the fall of Minneapolis, but they've been on him forever. I mean, this guy, he's been building up. Yeah, no, they do a great job.
Well, it makes you think that a conservative think tank should be all over Polis.
Yeah.
In preparation for Polis's run in a few years.
Exactly.
We all know where that's going. Come on.
Absolutely. Start collecting right now.
And Dana Perino will trot him out as this great libertarian governor when he's not. And it's going to be up to us, the Coloradans, to stop the Polis presidency.
Tell the truth.
By the way, Jared Polis, welcome on the show anytime.
Yeah, let's give us a ring. Drop on by. Say hello to Billy. He's got some snakes for you. Commerce City police reeling following a rash of weekend gun violence that left 4 people dead. It began Friday when 2 people were shot and wounded in a 7-Eleven parking lot. The suspect in the case was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. On Saturday, a man was shot and killed at Pioneer Park. The violence continued early Sunday morning when 2 more people were killed in a reported shootout involving at least 4 people near 65th and Monaco. Broncos beat the Colts 34-30. Preseason game number 1. Rockies over the Braves 9-8. They're at Arizona tonight, and the Olympics are history. The summer games. Team USA won 126 medals overall. 62 in Highlands Ranch and 63 in Lakewood, 65 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
All right, in just a minute, we're going to get to Jimmy Spangenberger and his reporting on the Tina Peters trial. But earlier this week, Trump released his 20 core promises to make America great again. Billy, are you ready for these?
Yes, sir, I am.
I'm very excited to get our independent friends' take on these. Number 1, seal the border and stop the migrant invasion.
Okay. How's he going to do
Number 1
that,
priority.
though?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, how's he going to seal it, though? That's the thing that I've got is I've heard this a lot. That
Guns.
in execution, you can't do that, though. And here's the reason why.
I think that's the only way you do it.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem you're going to get into is crossing the border illegally cannot be a capital offense. You can't shoot somebody for just trying to cross the border. That is where you're going to run afoul of the courts.
How about if you're a cartel smuggling drugs across? You don't think they can shoot at them?
If they're being shot at first, possibly, but I don't think you engage with the 007 license to kill.
They have bombs on their drones now.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm not saying this is a fair fight. I'm just saying that the function of putting people with guns at the border and saying we're going to shoot people coming across, I know it feels good, and because it's old English.
Them though? Do you think it scares them?
No, not in the least. And here's the reason why. Because it's the first time someone crosses the border and doesn't get shot at because you can't shoot at them, they're going to go, they're just pretending, and it won't matter. Because remember a couple of months ago, down in, I think it was El Paso, we had that big group of illegals or migrants, however you want to talk about them, doesn't matter for this conversation. They were behind a chain link fence. And they started pushing through the fence, and there were military members behind it, and they went right through them because the military guys can't engage to kill.
How about rubber bullets? Gas?
Possibly, but the only problem is then what you're going to have is anybody, and I'm talking about anybody that feels they were injured by the rubber bullets of the gas.
Sue.
Yep, exactly. And we saw that through Black Lives Matter. We saw people that were injured by rubber bullets, some that were actively participating in the riots and some that weren't. There was a media member that got hit in the eye by a rubber bullet and has since had some really, really awful neurological issues and some stuff. And so she's suing. But that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that happening is that they could be a stone cold murderer coming here from El Salvador, and they get hit by a rubber bullet and something weird happens. They'll sue and they're set for life. That's going to be the problem.
Number 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history.
Interesting. Right. I wonder how that works, but okay.
Number 3, end inflation and make America affordable again.
By doing what? Waving his magic wand? How's he possibly going to accomplish that?
Number 4, make America the dominant energy producer in the world by 4. Drill, baby, drill.
I know, here's the idea: is the dominant energy producer. We know that he's talking about oil and gas, but that's not the totality of energy. America could become the dominant energy producer through nuclear, through green, a bunch of different things. Yeah, that's the weird part.
Got to get on board with nuclear, man.
They really do.
That one's weird.
I 110% agree with you. Yeah, their shunning of nuclear is absolutely stupid, completely stupid.
Because they're stuck in Simpsons world.
Yeah, they are. Monty Python. Yeah, Monty Burns.
Barrels that leak,
and there's
point. When you stick them into Yucca Mountain or whatever it is, in Nevada, they all think it's somehow going to leak out.
You're exactly right.
Number 5, stop outsourcing and turn the United States into manufacturing superpower.
It's interesting. The only problem is, how does he do that while also controlling for inflation and making things less expensive? Because if we bring manufacturing into America, manufacturing becomes more expensive. It just does, because you have to pay more.
Tariffs are a bad idea. All right, large tax cuts for workers and no taxes on tips.
What's
number 7?
It's good though.
Number 7, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, except if you disagree with it. And then you can say we should suspend the Constitution, because that's what Trump did. He did suggest we suspend it. So again,
he never did.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying that he suggested it. So I'm just saying that he's going to defend it, but he also says
number 8, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America.
How's he going to possibly do that as far as Israel and Europe? Again, I don't understand how he's going to do that. He's
going to restore peace in the.
How?
Now, here's the interesting thing.
How does he force Russia and Ukraine to stop fighting? How do you do that?
Under his leadership, you didn't have wars, so he has that background.
The unrest in Syria and elsewhere would disagree with you on that one. Just in general. And again, but the idea, and this is the weird part, is the idea that for the person in the White House would have prevented either Hamas or Russia, I think is a farce. I don't understand why they would look at it and
because
say,
he did. He did.
No, he didn't. It's just, no, see, correlation.
Yes, he did.
Hang on a sec. Correlation is not causation. The fact that it didn't occur doesn't mean he prevented it. You know, I can go out today and it didn't rain. I don't get to say I prevented it from raining. I don't get to do that. Correlation is not causation. I totally
think he prevented it. I totally think he prevented it.
Yeah, he can try to prevent it from raining, but again, we'd have to see the causation. I don't see the causation, but that's okay.
Number 9, I love this one. This is why I want this guy in office. End the weaponization of government against the American people.
Yeah, that's a statement that starts with a conclusion, not working
that is
towards
absolutely
anything.
What the left has done with the government.
I know. Again, a conclusion. You start with a conclusion, then you work back.
Well, there's there's a baker in Lakewood who's had the government weaponized against him. Stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. I would love someone to declare war against the violent gangs and cartels coming out of Mexico.
We did though, didn't we? Didn't we? I mean, like, it wasn't in the 90s. We had the thing against the drugs.
And it was better.
Crips
we had less drugs than we do now.
I'm just saying,
it's horrible
we've done
now.
it before. Yeah.
But the argument there was because we didn't solve it all, it didn't work. It's like saying because we didn't end rape, we're just going to end the war on rape.
Yeah, the problem is that how do you fight rape? I mean, that's the thing. That's the weird part.
Constantly.
How's it going
you fight it all the time.
No, but
you fight it every single day. The same way you should fight drugs every single day.
Yeah, but how do you know when you've defeated it? And that's a weird part.
You're not. Because you're not going to. It's always going to be a part of your society, and you either fight it or you don't fight it.
Yeah.
And what we've done with drugs is like, well, just come on in. We'll legalize everything.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem you get into, because it becomes cyclical, just like the war on drugs was through late 80s, early 90s. It becomes cyclical because you can't ever win that war. So all you have to do is continually ratchet it up and keep talking about it, and you just keep and that's what we do. Difficult.
But walking away from it and legalizing it was not the right. Okay, we're only halfway through.
Yeah,
we got a few minutes left. Number 11: rebuild our cities, including Washington D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. I would like to know how he could do that, because the Democrat stranglehold on these cities is so strong.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what you could do from the federal government other than withhold funding in order to try to get your way with them. But
he did have he had 4 years of promising an infrastructure bill that never showed up. So I'm very skeptical on the idea of him having any ideas.
Safe, clean, and beautiful again.
I know, but
I like it. I'd like to see it.
But he had the opportunity, and he promised that he was going to do those type of things, and he didn't. So I have very little faith that he's going to do them now. He didn't do them before. And so,
number 12, strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world.
It is right now. I don't understand what he thinks he's seeing, but it is.
Number 13, keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency.
That's good. Fair. Yeah.
Number 14, fight and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age.
Yeah. Does Mitch McConnell know about that? Does the rest of the
this is where I, as a conservative, this is where I've always disagreed with him on this stuff. And I get it. He's like, I'm a populist. I'm going to always protect these these social programs, but they are literally bankrupting the next generation, and you've got to find cuts there. Number 15, cancel the electrical vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations. Okay, like that. Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. This is where he uses the power of the Department of Education against the left.
Yeah. The weird part on that, though, is he talks about pushing, and then he talks about things that he doesn't like, and that is a subjective definition.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. He's using the power of the Department of Education, which conservatives hate, and maybe the left will go, maybe we shouldn't have the Department of Education.
Yeah, the problem is, the problem with this is now that we have Chevron, his ability to do that from the Department of Education is severely handcuffed right now. He doesn't have the power Biden has right now. The Department of Education, well, did have, not anymore, thanks to the Chevron deference decision. So he doesn't have that power.
Yeah, it would have to, maybe. All right, number 17. This is a good one. Keep men out of women's sports.
Okay.
Direct and to the point. Number 18.
Smart one. That's a smart one. I would put that higher up the list, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Because Kamala will not promise that one. She couldn't copy that one.
Yeah, it's one that you can really push on, and it's one that is emotional, and it's one that I believe, again, I'm pulling this out of the other orifice of my body, the one that I don't point towards the microphone, just telling you that one, that I would believe somewhere around 70% of Americans would be on board with that. It's a very strong platform. Very strong.
Number 18, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again.
Cool. Although the only problem would be is if they're college students.
Free speech thing there, but
the thing first, his free speech. But the other part is if they are here in the country for some reason illegally, etc. Okay.
Yes.
If you want to say that for doing things like this, you can suspend visas or reasons you're here. Okay, that I can get on board with. The problem you're going to have is what you do with the college students, the young skulls of mush that have been persuaded by those activists. That's what are you going to do with those people that show up?
South Denver suburbs, white liberals,
exactly,
all on board.
Yeah, and all those kids that were down, all those kids that were down at the Tivoli, protesting all that stuff. Yeah, a lot of those people were citizens. So what are we going to do with them? And they've been misguided.
But if you're coming here from Iran, for instance, and you're joining with protests calling for the death of America, like they did in Michigan.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm happy suspending your visa. Absolutely.
Number 19, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship.
How are you going to do that?
I don't like federalizing our elections.
Here's the problem.
I'm not a fan of that one.
This sounds good. That to me is basically a warm cup of cocoa. It makes you feel good, warms your tum-tum.
It's our states that determine the elections.
Yeah, but the other problem is this: is two things: the idea of a voter ID card and proof of citizenship. How, on the day you're going to vote, do you prove your citizenship? What are you going to do there? And if it is that we do a voter ID card, okay, but you're also expecting people then to keep track of another card. How many times have you lost, your phone, another ID card, the ID card you have for your gym membership or something? You probably don't lose your, Colorado State ID as often, but kind of the same thing. The other part is why we believe that the one super secure technology we have are ID cards, as if kids haven't been hacking those since the 70s. Kids, I'm not talking about cartels or anything else.
These days, they I just flew the other day and they took my card and scanned it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I also know of there are illegals in this country that are in. Hang on, but they're in here on fake IDs, on manufactured IDs, or taking over somebody else's identity that's outside the country and is an expat. So the idea that we prevent the harm that Republicans see in the voting system by this it's imaginary. It's Donald Trump offering you a warm cup of cocoa and saying, I'm going to make you feel better about this. It doesn't impact anything.
I do think it's a problem. Just because some people can get around it doesn't mean we don't address it. But I also don't like the idea of federalizing our elections. That scares me when the Democrats get in control. So it should remain in the states. All right, we're just out of time. I got to read number 20 here. All right, Billy. This is the greatest one of them all. Unite our country by bringing it into new and record levels of success. count me for pulling the lever for DJT.
Yeah.
He's going to bring us all record levels of success.
I think I heard that from the guy that was running for class president in 7th grade. I think that's what it
was.
Same thing.
Soda in the pop fountain, or pop in the
exactly.
Soda,
he's promising something that is.
All right, we got to get to Bill. We got to get to Jimmy
he's
here.
Hanging out with us.
All right, Jimmy will be here in just a second. Hey, it's Jeff from Jeff and the Bill Show. I want to talk to you about my friends at Mountain High Appliance. They've cooked up some tasty deals for your kitchen. Now, for a limited time, receive up to a $3,000 rebate with the purchase of qualifying GE Cafe appliances. Enjoy the Mountain High Appliance price match guarantee and special financing options. Visit one of their 4 locations for all their details and upgrade your kitchen with GE Cafe appliances in Denver at East 64th, Littleton, Louisville, and Glenwood Springs. Mountain High Appliance, experience the difference. Coming up next, the very talented Jimmy Sengenberger covering the Tina Peters trial. He's going to give us an update. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Very proud to have joining us, friend of the program and former host here on 710 KNUS, Jimmy Stengenberger, who's an investigative journalist, public speaker, and longtime local talk radio host. He writes regularly for the Gazette, and he's been following the Tina Peters trial, doing some great updates on that. Jimmy, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning, guys. Glad to be here to talk about this tangled trial. I've watched like 95% of it, so my brain is a little fried. I got to be honest.
Well, thank you for doing the heavy lifting. Give us a sense of what's going on. We know Tina Peters has been brought up on a number of charges related to the election debacle of 2020, but give folks an overview and how's the trial going?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the events of 2021, when in May of 2021, she caused a guy by the name of Conan Hayes to go in pretending to be another guy named Gerald Wood, by the way, with the cameras shut off, to make copies of the election server before and after a software update of the Dominion voting systems election software called the Trusted Build. The theory, supposed theory, being that there would be files deleted that are required to be kept under state and federal law. By the way, just to be clear, nothing is deleted in the Trusted Build that is required under any rules or statutes, both federal and state. Well, in August of 2021, the investigation over this began when passwords and videos were released from this Trusted Build process. Tina Peters had recorded video of this, and that leaked online, and it just spread from there and resulted in 7 felony charges initially and 3 misdemeanor counts, and a couple of others in her office, senior officials under her, were also charged and eventually flipped in this case. So that's really the bottom line of what the case is about.
Now, you've been watching the court case go through. Has the prosecution been effective, from your opinion, in arguing against her and proving their case?
I think very much so. One of the big things with this case for them has been just demonstrating the facts of the matter, including things that, you have ample number of witnesses to support. That you did have Gerald Wood, who testified 2 Fridays ago. He did go in and get a background check, and he did go through this whole process to get a badge, which he then turned back and was then admitted by the defense, by this Conan Hayes, a former 1990s pro surfer, by the way. And they've just done a really incisive job of picking their witnesses that they have go onto the stand and breaking things down. The only downside for them is that it has gone on really long. And so a lot of that with the jury, of course, you can get bogged down a bit, but I also think they've done a good job at pointing out instances, and there are many, where the defense was not being relevant. They were essentially violating a pretrial order from the judge, Judge Matthew Barrett, who said things like, you can't bring in the election conspiracy ideas about deleted files or this and that, because that's immaterial to any of the charges like criminal impersonation and identity theft and others. It has nothing to do with those charges. And so they've objected many times, and usually the judge sustains those objections. It's the defense that I think has been very, very faulty in any sort of case they're trying to bring.
Now, we're talking with Jimmy Stengenberger. He's been writing about the Tina Peters case in the Gazette. One of the things you point out is that you think this is all tied to Mike Lindell and him trying to prove his side of the case in some of these defamation cases, right? Can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, and that actually gets to the core of the problem with the defense for Tina Peters. So in February of 2021 or March of 2021, Lindell was sued by Dominion Voting Systems in $1.3 billion defamation case. And after that appears to have sort of set forth a quest to prove his bogus claims. And the proof of that actually has really come in through this trial. I'll just give you one example, guys, and that is Judge Barrett asked attorney Dan Hartman, who, by the way, is an attorney for other defendants in election conspiracy cases. Barrett asked, but it was for the purposes of his defamation case. And Hartman responds, absolutely. I can assure you, following the trusted build, that the effect was the deletion of the records he, Lindell, needed to defend his lawsuit. And that was a week ago today when Hartman ate up 40 minutes of the trial to throw all sorts of conspiracy theories against the wall to see what would stick. And Judge Barrett came back and said, look, what you're doing is basically presenting an ends justify the means case, a theory of evils, jury nullification, he said twice, and I'm not going to allow that in the courtroom. And by the end of last week, it got so bad in trying to go in this direction on election stuff that he even threatened the possibility of sanctions against one or two of the lawyers. And the one other thing that I'll just bring up real quick is that the defense really does resemble a Dominion fishing expedition that doesn't have anything to do with the case in and of itself. And that's particularly revealed in the kinds of witnesses they tried to bring up, questions and arguments they tried to present, the justification from Tina Peters on Friday that she gave for why she would not be testifying. And there are so many players that have been paid for by Mike Lindell throughout the country and in this case on these different issues. So I really think this is a tangled web that leads back to Mike Lindell.
So when I first heard of this story, my mind kind of went to the movie called named The Post with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, where the Washington Post is publishing classified documents that it quote unquote stole or received that were stolen from the Pentagon. And I just wondered, you know, if Tina Peters was able to demonstrate that there was real fraud, would her actions have been justified? In this case, she hasn't been able to. And so did she kind of bet big and lose? Would her actions have been justified if she was able to demonstrate real fraud?
Well, that's the real trick, isn't it? Proving an ends justify the means case, which, as Judge Barrett made clear, isn't a defense that is viable in the court of law. You can't just make that argument. Now, the big problem, of course, is that there are no ends that she actually proved. We know what they claim was deleted when we know that the things that were deleted during the process of the trusted build are not required to be kept. So there was nothing proven there. But even if there was, I don't think you can have any sort of legal justification for going through the process of identity theft, criminal impersonation, coming up with all sorts of stories, like whether it was the Secretary of State's office or her own employees. There were lies told by her and her accomplice, by Tina Peters and her accomplices, that caused Conan Hayes to be able to go in there illicitly. People were told Gerald Wood is an administrative assistant, even though he was brought in as a contractor and was never paid. Email records show, they said he's an administrative assistant and he's being trained to move from motor vehicles to elections. But that was not true. When you're not legally required to keep cameras on outside of a certain time frame around before and after the elections, but for Mesa County, it was like 10 years at least that they had these cameras running consistently, and she had them turned off via her deputy, Belinda Nicely, just before this trusted build process and for a couple months after that process. So I don't think there's any way you could make a viable ends justify the means argument from what Tina Peters did. And then, of course, the criminal allegations on top of that, because I'll just say this. Anybody who is brought before a court of law is innocent until proven guilty, but that doesn't mean they aren't guilty of unethical conduct. It's just a question of, is it's something they did that violated the law or not?
Talking with Jimmy Sengenberger. He's an investigative journalist with the Gazette and talk radio host here in Denver on lots of different stations. Very talented. Jimmy, your read of the jury. And obviously you haven't been in the courtroom. I think you've been watching this. But from your sense, watching this case, they could possibly go into deliberations this week. What's your sense of where they're going to land?
Well, in fact, they will be. Today, there will be closing arguments, and then they already went over jury instructions on Friday after the defense rested their case. They only brought up 5 or 6 witnesses. And I think then today they'll go into deliberations. But I think that it is a very difficult case to the extent there's been a case made by Tina Peters' defense team for acquittal here, just because the fact that they have been going down rabbit holes for the most part that haven't stuck. And I think the jury recognizes that, especially with the weight of the evidence and the witness testimony. But you never know. There are possibilities that certain counts might not move forward. There were a couple of counts on Friday where Peter's attorneys argued that they should be dismissed by the judge, and the judge said, after hearing arguments from both sides and then giving deliberate reasoning, as he consistently did, he was able to say, no, we're not doing that. We're going to keep those charges. But that kind of thing, like the 40 minutes I mentioned from last week, have been without the jury present. So there are some things that have been said that I watched on live stream that the jury didn't see. But even with the vast majority that the jury saw, I think for the most part, it's a very difficult case for the defense, especially since, strangely, they haven't seemed to put up much of a real defense in this trial.
Jimmy Sangenberger joining Jeff and Bill live. He's a local columnist and talk show host. Cut his teeth right here on KNUS, and he's now out there in the big wide world, giving everybody else the fight out there. And we appreciate hearing you both on this station, and then when you visit other places. I'm not going to shout out, the other Death Star out there, but I've heard you on there, my friend, and I appreciate the work you've been doing, and especially the hard work you've been doing on this Tina Peters case. I'm glad you just highlighted the defense. When I've been reading this, I haven't seen Tina really put up a defense. We were investigating fraud, the fact that we can't prove any fraud existed, but since we were doing this out of the goodness of our hearts, you should let us go. That's kind of what I'm hearing the defense put forward. Now, from what you've watched, from what you've heard, if you were sitting in that jury box, would it be persuadable? Putting yourself in a Mesa County, average person, is the defense persuadable at all?
It is an interesting question. Probably hard for me to judge in the same way because I've literally followed this for 3 years. I mean, it was 3 years ago that I first wrote my first column on this case. But I do think that with maybe a couple charges accepted, I find it really hard to think that the defense is really persuasive to the jury, particularly because the jury instructions and the arguments and the questioning and what was allowed and what was sustained and so on and so forth when there were objections have been laid out in such a way that for the jury, that I think that they in their minds, they're going, okay, we can't factor in these things about the election and what have you. And they didn't even explore it much at all in front of the jury. There were a few questions here and there that got through, but by and large, it didn't. And so when you don't have much of a defense, I find it hard for you to be very persuasive in that way. So to the extent that I can put myself in the jury's shoes, I think they're hard pressed to find a persuasive argument in what they have seen from the defense.
Now let's talk about, Jimmy, the idea of a conviction or acquittal. What I want to know from you is, if we are just assuming, just for the conversation here, two things. First, we will assume that Tina is found guilty on some of the charges. Do you think the people that feel the election was stolen will take that and go, oh, she didn't have the fraud, okay, maybe we're wrong about it? Or will it be a conclusion of, well, Joe Biden's Department of Justice has struck again? And then on the other side, if she's acquitted of this, would the shoe be on the other foot? That the people that have been accusing her of messing the election, et cetera, will go, well, maybe we were wrong. Maybe she was just doing the good fight and going after the fraud. The bottom line question is, depending on if she's convicted or even found or acquitted, does it really change anything in the conversation? What do you think?
So I would first say that the question presumes equal weight to the two sides.
Oh, that's good.
And so I would say if there were to be acquittal, the position from folks who would be looking at this and saying, okay, she needs to be held accountable for this wouldn't be, oh, she proved fraud. Because again, that's not what the case is about. It would be, oh, well, okay, the jury found that she didn't break these particular laws in pursuit of nothing. That's the one side. On the other side, we are already seeing it. In fact, Tina Peters herself already said to the court when she said to the judge, I just feel like I have been prevented from providing a defense for myself. The court has excluded that as in certain evidence she was claiming to want to bring in, and therefore I decline. The argument from them is going to be this was rigged. The judge didn't allow them to bring in the evidence to prove the fraud. She wasn't able to make her case, claiming things, for example, that Conan Hayes is a government informant, even though the prosecution and the defense both say she's not an FBI informant, anything of that sort. We could go down another direction to talk about the nonsense of what I theorize their argument is in that regard. But they're already pinning this on people like Jenna Griswold, even though she is utterly irrelevant in terms of this case, with just a couple of little exceptions. I'm a massive critic, as you guys know, of Griswold. I've been the one who exposed that she's the fulcrum of a dark money network as president of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. But she has no role in any of this as far as overreach is concerned, except for one thing from 2021. So they're already setting up for that argument, as you would expect. But again, there's still no there as far as the ends that supposedly justify the means.
That's Jimmy. That's the point. That is the point. If I'm going to go back to the movies here. We all love a good Mission Impossible movie, right? With cameras turned off and fake IDs and you sneaking in to get the knock list and all that stuff because you're fighting the bad guy. They did that. And if they'd come out with real fraud, none of them would have been brought up on charges. Jenna Griswold or whoever else was instigating fraud would have been brought up on the charges, and we'd have a very different court case going on. They gambled. They risked. They went all in and lost. And now you got to pay the piper. I'm sorry. If you had discovered big fraud, this would have been a very different case. Different people would have been brought up on charges. You didn't. And now you got to pay the piper. So, Jimmy, I really appreciate all the coverage you're providing on this. I've asked Jimmy to come back once the jury comes back to give us an analysis on the findings of the jury. But, Jimmy, you've been doing a great job diving into these details. Thank you for watching 95% of a court proceeding.
Thank you.
And dissecting it for the rest of us. I appreciate it.
You bet. Happy to come back in a couple of days. And I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to having my life back after this trial is done.
Thanks for all the hard work,
Jimmy
my friend.
Sangenberger. His columns are published regularly in the Gazette, so you can go over there and watch and follow him there. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Billy, I mean, correct me where I'm wrong. I think the analysis is if they found the deep state fraud stuff, we'd have very different trials.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't be Tina Peters. And in my sense is, hey, I guess I appreciate the fact you went after and looked for it, but you did the Mission Impossible stuff. You did the fake ID stuff. You turned off the cameras. You went in. And if you had come out victorious, everyone would be celebrating you. You rolled the dice. You went all in and you lost.
Yeah. And we've got a comment on Facebook that says part of what we're talking about with Jimmy, that Tina wasn't allowed to present her defense that she wanted to, nor her witnesses. I know, but
she got to defend her.
I know, but that's the filter, and that's what we were asking Jimmy about. Is that regardless of how this happens, is this already baked in that it won't change anything? And that's the discussion that I'd like to have about Fox News. That if there was the deep state, if there was all of this, Fox News had the perfect opportunity to present all of it in court and come out on the other end being the truth tellers that were the only media outlet to find the fraud, and they didn't. They wrote a check.
You, the fraud stuff, the election fraud stuff reminds me of the Iraq weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know,
man.
I just don't feel like it all came together. All right, we'll continue. Joshua Sharp's up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, CAN-US.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado, on this August 12th, Monday morning. We're taking the week off and getting it going right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So get another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news with Blake Olson, good friend of the show, Joshua Sharf, a fiscal policy analyst with the Independence Institute, is going to be joining us. Because if you live in the city of Denver, just hit yourself on the head with a tack hammer and give all your money to the government at this point. Because why not? They want to bring you another $100 million tax increase because they ran out of money serving illegal immigrants.
They've done such a good job with the money they had first. They've managed it so well. They now need more of our money. That's great. It sounds like my kids. Dad, I'm out of my allowance.
I swear, just leave the city or just hand your wallet over to the city leaders.
Oh, exactly.
So Joshua Sharf will join us in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. 69 and cloudy, expecting a high of 86 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, former President Trump will sue the Department of Justice $100 million for their raid on his Mar-a-Lago property in 2022, according to Fox News. Trump's lawyers argue the raid was done with clear intent to engage in political persecution. There's an interview tonight, Trump and Elon Musk on X at 6 o'clock Denver time.
People for being anti-child. And I do think that Kamala Harris has made some bizarre statements. She has said things like, it's reasonable not to have children over climate change. I think it's the exact opposite message we should be sending to our young families. I want to expand the child tax credit. I want to stop those surprise medical bills. I want to make housing more affordable so that if you have a young family, you can actually afford to put them in a home. And I think that it is unfortunate that so much of our public leadership has become anti-family.
Good for J.D. Vance. Family is the key to success for the country, and the left is the party of saving the world but pushing abortion. Now, that makes sense. The woman who's running for president is running from the press, media, reporters, whatever you want to call it, the truth. But why would they do that? I mean, why would they talk to the press? I mean, it worked for Biden for 4 years. They were able to keep Jurassic Joe in the basement, answer a few canned questions on Zoom, suppress information, omit facts and bombshell stories like Hunter's laptop, and then capitalize on mail-in voting. So this guy could win.
Think of this. Every other time the Ku Klux Klan has been involved, they wore hoods, so they're not identified. Under his presidency, they came out of those woods with no hoods, knowing they had an ally. That's how I read it. They knew they had an ally in the White House. And he stepped up for them.
That guy is still the president. Had an interview over the weekend, and it's been 22 days since he was booted out, asked to step down by this lady.
Well, it's been, again, his legacy as a preeminent president, and it's hard to, he's right there among the top few.
Mm-hmm. She's about 3 ice cream cones away from being able to relate to President Biden. But Kamala Harris is avoiding the press that gives her cover, and they love her. And by the time they get to interview her, they'll be able to ask, hey, what does it feel like to be handed the nomination?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. More parents are seeing the value of educators when they had to and said, we're not paying them nearly enough.
She refuses to take questions about what direction she would take this country in. She hasn't had a single proposal since she became the presidential nominee. Well, I take that back. Last night, she said that she was going to eliminate taxes on tips. So the only proposal she's had since she became a presidential nominee is to steal one of Donald Trump's ideas at a time when her administration said that they would crack down on the taxation of tips. That's why they needed $87 billion for more IRS enforcement.
That is amazing. All right. Columbia University amping up campus security ahead of potential anti-Israel demonstrations for the upcoming fall semester. Columbia's security level works on a color code. Sounds racist to me. So it was relaxed to green over the summer, but it's now orange, which means only students and staff with IDs can come through the gates at 5 designated entry points. We'll see if it turns to red in a month. An investigation is ongoing following an officer-involved shooting in Thornton. It happened last night near 97th and Washington. Police say that a reported shooting turned into a barricaded suspect situation. At around 10 o'clock, police announced the incident had escalated to an officer-involved shooting. The suspect was taken into custody, and that man was taken to a hospital with serious injuries. An Illinois teacher sentenced to 9 years in prison for stealing $1.5 million worth of chicken wings. 68-year-old Vera Liddell pulled off the chicken wing heist for 2 years. Liddell would place orders for the wings with a food provider for the school district, but the district would then keep the wings, and she would keep the wings. So she ordered over 11,000 cases of wings. All right, speaking of wings and maybe football, Broncos beat the Colts.
Blake, I feel like I feel like I eat one basket of wings and I'm going to die because I've gone off.
Man.
I've gone off my diet. I mean, they taste delicious. I know they're good.
Yeah,
they're good tasting, but they don't they're not good for your body.
Yeah.
And she had 11,000.
Yeah, 11,000. She must.
She had 11,000.
Is
she 400 pounds at this point?
Well, I'm hoping that she sold them to another business. I would imagine,
maybe
to a restaurant or or she had her own little place, storefront and sold them. No, what's crazy, man?
Did the story give us her name?
Yeah. It's Liddell.
Liddell's wings.
Liddell's wings, man. You got. She was selling them out the back of her house.
Did you ever see there's somebody out there who was like Liddell's wings and foot massage?
Yeah,
and they actually ran commercials. You go get wings and a foot massage.
Yeah, that sounds factual. All right. Let's see. United States coming home with one of the most successful summer games in history. USA won 126 medals overall, their highest total since capturing the 174 medals in Los Angeles in 1984. I did mention the Broncos 34-30, but Billy said it was tough to find on
it was impossible to find. It was worse than having to do something for finding Easter eggs when you're a kid. It's worse than a word search. It was worse than Where's Waldo. It was painful and stupid. I'm a little mad about it if you can't tell.
Modern day technology, man, we're actually stepping back. It's so hard to find stuff.
Here's the thing for me. Okay, it is a preseason game, understand. But it's not in market. They're playing in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I understand making the choice, but why there isn't a regular broadcast channel, and here it is, okay? So we've cut the cord. We're streaming. And for whatever reason, whatever it is, KTVD, the Channel 20, the offshoot of Channel 9, it's not on our thing. I searched 3 different apps. It's not there. Couldn't find it. No, it's not on the thing. And when I did go in there, exactly. So I sound like an old guy. And I go in there and I push the button for the NFL thing, and the NFL thing pops up, and it has the Bronco game. It says Broncos Colts, and I go, and it says, not authorized in your area. What do you mean not authorized in my area? I'm in Denver. They're playing in Indianapolis. I'm pretty sure one of the teams is from Denver.
Preseason game.
Yes. Why can't I watch this? So eventually, and this is how Okay. And this is, again, old man problems here. So I have to, on our smart TV, and I question that moniker already, have to go over to the thing that says internet. I go to the internet. We open it up now because this is a smart TV and we're supposed to be able to do everything through our TV. I now have to use my remote to navigate the Google box.
Right.
With my remote that has no way to type. So now I have to get to 9 News, and then I have to use a stupid remote to somehow navigate. You can't scroll down. That doesn't work properly.
No.
And then you click on the thing to stream, and then it takes me like 5 minutes for the stream thing to open up. And then I finally have it. And heaven forbid, I try to maximize it so that the little window on the 9 News website fills my entire screen. No. That somehow is too difficult for my smart TV that I paid a lot of money for. A little mad. It was way too difficult for me to watch a football game.
The third quarter, fourth quarter.
We were 6 minutes from halftime. It took me like an hour and a half.
I'm telling you, that's what
I know.
Yes. God, back in the day, it was so
yes,
easy.
It was. It sucks. And the other part is when you're doing that, and some of the kids are like, "Hey, Dad, you can do this and click over there," and I'm like, "Stop it!"
Exactly.
I'm already this stupid and old. It's just It was a frustration of being old and bad technology.
Dude. Man,
I know,
you worked hard for that stuff.
For a preseason game. I'm an idiot.
Preseason game.
I know. Exactly. I wanted to watch it that badly. I wanted to see the team. That was it.
Well,
so,
congratulations. You got to see a little bit.
Not sure it was worth it, but it was good. Back to you. I'm sorry.
I can relate. I know exactly. That's why I wanted you to talk about it.
I appreciate it.
I can't stand that.
So hard. It's ridiculous.
It is. 67 in Littleton, 66 in Arvada, and 69 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on this Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
Oh, damn. Hello, Keith Urban, to kick you off Monday morning. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill show. All right, the Gazette reporting. The Denver City Council appears to support $100 million sales tax increase. At this point, if you are a resident of the city of Denver, just hit yourself over the head with a tack hammer and hand your wallet to your city leaders because they've just won it all.
Yep.
The reason they need $100 million in a sales tax increase is because they spent it all on illegal immigrants.
they're like your teenager that needs more allowance on Wednesday. I ran out of money. Give me more money.
I don't get it. Like they even admit to it.
Oh, yeah.
They even admit that illegal immigrants have cost the city well over $100 million. They don't know what to do with the services that they should be providing to you because they ran out. And Billy, we talked about this with Danielle Jurinsky and the rest of the leadership at Aurora City Council, that there was a big experiment going on. You had one city that was saying, we're prioritizing our citizens. They're coming first. Okay, we're not going to stop an NGO or the Catholic Church from serving an illegal immigrant if they want to, but we're not going to use taxpayer dollars that come from the people to serve them.
Yeah.
And then you had the city of Denver that put up a giant banner that said, "We heart immigrants," essentially saying, come on in. We're going to provide 6 months of apartment funding for you. We're going to give you a debit card with money on it to pay for groceries or whatever personal items you need. We're going to give you a lawyer that's going to help you with your illegal immigrant process. And then we're going to provide workforce training for you so you can get a job. Now we're $100 million out of whack in our budget. So we need to raise the taxes on the people who live in the city, who are law abiding, not breaking laws, illegal immigration laws, they're going to now have to pay additional money just to provide the basic services that we should have provided to you in the first place.
But let me give you an analogy. And again, I like analogies, and this one is inelegant, but I think that it outlines the difference between Denver and Aurora, and especially your point about Denver fairly well, even though it's a little inelegant. I'm going to call it the Golden Corral analogy. Anybody that's been to Golden Corral knows that it is a buffet of everything. Everything you want to eat is there. Now, what Aurora did is they set up their Golden Corral buffet, and so did Denver. Each one has competing buffets. However, Aurora decided, yes, this buffet is going to be free, and I use that in air quotes, but the people that get to line up first are those taxpayers that are funding the free buffet. After that, everybody else can have a seat at the table, and we will use extraneous monies to supplement and help out those that are struggling. Denver did the opposite. Denver opened their free Golden Corral buffet and says, immigrants, if you are here for whatever reason, legal, illegal, asylum claimers, doesn't matter. You get to the front of the line and eat as much as you want, and the taxpayers then get to eat when you're done. But now what we found out is that the free Golden Corral buffet in Denver, before the taxpayers have eaten, they ran out of food. And so now they're coming to the taxpayers saying, oh, you know that food we promised you? We ran out of it because we gave it to these people. Now we need more money for you so that we can now feed you. The stuff we promised you earlier about all the food here in this Golden Corral buffet, it's not really true. We now need more money just to give you what we promised we were going to give you to start. So you can't have a free buffet.
That's a great analogy. Well, someone who's been writing on this and covering it is a fiscal policy analyst for the Independence Institute and good friend of the show, Joshua Sharf. Joshua joins us. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I mean, frankly, I think they just ought to put a surtax on the sales, a surcharge on the sales tax to buy everyone a free digital HD antenna.
Absolutely. It solved my problem.
There we go. So,
nicely done.
I mean, Joshua, you're looking at this. You've been covering this. This was anticipated. We knew that they didn't have the money to be able to afford the 40,000 illegal immigrants they were bringing into the city. They've spent now, I think, $155 million on this. Why do the people of Denver continue to put these people into office when all they do is rob them?
Well, look, I mean, this is the problem that progressive cities have. I mean, the model of governance for this city council and this mayor appears to be, San Francisco and Portland and Seattle and various other progressive cities. And that appears to be that some of those cities are starting to step back from, at least somewhat in some ways. But the lessons not having been taught hard enough yet, we continue to vote for what makes some people feel good rather than what actually makes the city work. I think the analogy you want, by the way, is East Germany and West Germany, but less than. Yeah, I mean, not obviously that extreme, but look, I mean, you've got a situation where the city is actually doing pretty well in terms of tax money. Over the last 7 years, it's gone up significantly on for a family of four. The difference that a family of four pays over the course of a year in sales taxes between 2016 and 2023, the last year that obviously we don't have 2024's numbers yet, is $3,100 a year. That's the difference. Okay, that's about $260 a month or so. And that could be the difference in rent. Now, but that's just, how much has gone, not just increases in sales taxes, but increase in economic activity. $3,100 a year more, and it's still not enough. And that's for a family of four. The total amount since, in 2023, the city took in $677 million in sales taxes. Last year, we don't have the final numbers yet, but if we sort of use the state keeps track of sales, and then you can kind of figure out what it should be. It's close to double that. It's $1.26 billion. That's an annual increase over 7 years of 9.2%. All right, that's enormous. They have plenty of money to deal with basic services and to deal with the things the government should be doing. And instead, they have, as you said, they have spent money on inviting illegal immigrants here and then being upset when they show up, and have to have, and we don't know how much of that is what's stressing Denver health. There's already a 0.5% sales tax increase on the ballot in the fall for Denver health. We don't know how much of that is a result of having to serve illegal immigrants who by definition are not going to get insurance. And then they want this for so-called affordable housing, which is a whole nother boondoggle. And this is criminally irresponsible, and there is no reason to have to come back to the citizens for this.
No, Joshua Sharf, policy analyst with the Independence Institute. Do you expect them to run out there and push this the way that progressives always do? That the teachers need more money, that the nurses need more money, that the people that provide good services for our communities, they just need some more money. Will that be the tack that they take?
Probably not in this case. Now there's another thing that's going to be on the ballot where they will do that, but in this case, because it's targeted toward so-called affordable housing,
yes, that's right,
tends to produce lots of revenue and not much housing in other places that this is tried. By the way, run the numbers on this. They want $100 million over 10 years, and they think they're going to build 20,000 units over that time. Okay, 20,000 units, $100 million over 10 years. That's $5,000 a unit to be built. I'm unsure how that. Now there may be a way that works out, but I'm unsure how $5,000 builds an apartment. And so,
where does it build it? That's a great example.
This appears to be a subsidy of some sort. But if that's the marginal difference between being able to build a place and not, I'm not sure you couldn't find that by, say, doing what we've been told that we need to do over and over and over again, and that the city has just been unable to get off the blocks and do, which is to relax some of the building code requirements, some of the liability requirements that make building housing so expensive. And so you could probably find that money that way, but instead they want to make things more expensive and then charge the citizenry what they think the margin is in order to make it in order to get people to build this. This is just irresponsible governance.
Joshua Sharf, fiscal policy analyst with the Independence Institute. I mean, haven't they tried for affordable housing in the past? One thing that always strikes me about these political schemes is the idea that we just woke up today and came up with the idea. Haven't there been efforts with Denver to deal with affordable housing in the past? And how has that worked out?
In theory, in the last decade, well, not the last decade again, for which we have full numbers. So we're looking at 2013 to 2022, so that's 10 years. Denver built over 7,200 so-called affordable housing units. All right, and that was at the same time that rents are skyrocketing, and now the city became one of the most unaffordable markets for housing in the country. The region is pretty bad. The city is even worse. And I forget. I want to say it was Heritage. I think it was Heritage. It might one of the large think tanks out of DC. Sort of has a special unit devoted to housing affordability. And Denver was the worst, least affordable housing market in the country at the same time that they were building 7,200 units. And I have no problem putting more housing online, but I mean, we should, right? That's the solution. If you have demand exceeding supply, the answer is to increase supply. But to do it this way, by making things more expensive and then taxing everyone to pay for that is, like I say, I mean, there's no reason. And now, of course, what's happening is that people are leaving Denver. And so what you have, pods, which is, those big containers that you see in front of people's yards, sometimes pods, that's the company that makes those and lets you move your stuff around or store it temporarily. They run a survey of where people are moving from and where people are moving to. And so Denver is now the number 12 city in the country for people leaving. And the main reason is housing costs.
Wow.
All right. So they built all this affordable housing.
I thought we were all just going to drink, brews, micro brews, and chill out, bro, and have a great time. What happened to early 2000s? What happened to early 2000s Denver?
Yeah, well, people. It was a great place to move to, and so lots of people decided they want to move. They wanted to move here. That's what happens, right? There's nothing the matter with that, but you can't make it impossible for people to move here. And now, of course, the whole gas station. I don't know if you saw that piece, but the whole they've decided that with all the people moving here, what do? They bring their cars with them.
Yeah.
And so we're building gas stations to let those people fuel up. And the city council doesn't like that either. Right? So they take up too much real estate that could be used for housing. So we're going to put limits on how many gas stations. Well, what do they think? Do they not think that people moving here are going to bring their cars with them? So again, this is that there's an ideology here at work that is just destructive at all levels. And by the way, we were talking before about so the Washington Monument strategy is the schools need it, or the libraries need it, or whoever it is needs X, Y, and Z, and so we're going to have to shut down. We're going to have to cut down library hour. The police need, which certainly they do. Again, that's a core function of government. So that's what they parade out in front. Are these sort of core functions of government, and say, well, we're going to have to shut this down unless you give us more money. One of the things that's on the ballot that's going to affect that, there's a ballot measure to unionize the city workforce, which had been exempt from unionization under state law. So the state passed legislation a couple of years ago that required state government to be unionized, and then allows or requires counties over population of 7,500 to recognize bargaining units if the employees join those. And Denver and Broomfield were exempted from that, and so because they're city counties, so they were exempted from that. And so Denver on its own says, well, we should pass this. This is going to be an amendment to the city charter, and so it has to go to the people for a vote. But we want to allow our city workforce to unionize, which of course is just going to drive up costs further. But the description in the Blue Book, even though the description in the legislation is executive departments under authority of the mayor and so on and so forth, it's going to lead with allowing libraries to unionize. That's the description.
Libraries?
In the right, the library staff.
Yeah, I know. They're the people that are exploited. Well, of course, we also had a special sales tax supplement.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, a few years ago, specifically devoted the first year, because you can only do the marginal increase. You only know what the marginal increase is the first year. So but that first year, and then a number capped at a certain amount, they put that in specifically devoted to libraries. And so now they're going to allow the workforce there to unionize, which is going to drive up costs again. Then of course, they may not do it this time, but you're right. Next time they're going to come back and say, oh, we need more money for the libraries because it got more expensive. In the meantime, actual holdings and borrowing at the libraries are plummeting.
Yep.
Right. So, everybody loves the library, but not everyone wants to go there. Right. And so this is what's happening. So, but again, these people they're taking in. I would like to say they're taking in more money than they know what to do with, but they're that whole there was an older movie, and then it was remade where the guy has to spend a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time.
Brewster's Millions.
Get the inheritance. Yeah, that was the remake.
Yeah, it's a remake. I don't remember the original, but yeah.
I want to say Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. Was that the original?
I think that's right. I think you're right. Nicely done. I think you're right on that one.
And so he has to spend a certain, and the idea is, he's got more money than he can possibly spend. That's never true with government, and it's certainly never true with the city government. They will always find a way to spend whatever they get.
Joshua Sharp, fellow with the Independence Institute, joining Jeff and Bill live. Continue, Jeff. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we're going to continue with Joshua Sharp here in just a second. I want to talk to you about Dr. Mike and the Rocky Mountain Dental Group. With all the work I've had done to my teeth, believe me, finding a good dentist makes all the difference. Dr. Mike and the Rocky Mountain Dental Group are helping people like you and me feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. I've been going there for over 20 years. Dr. Mike and his entire staff are outstanding. I like the fact that the same person always cleans my teeth. If you need an awesome dentist, Dr. Mike is your guy. If your gums are receding, it's critical to address this issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The procedure involves making a small hole in the tissue and gently repositioning the gums. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike and discover all the benefits of this revolutionary procedure. Call 303-233-1335. or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. That's RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. We'll continue with Joshua Sharp. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking with Joshua Sharf. He's a fiscal policy analyst at the Independence Institute. Headline of the Denver Gazette: the Denver City Council appears to support $100 million sales tax increase. Because they're a bunch of communists. They just want your money and they want to believe they can spend it better than you. Oh my goodness, what are they to do? Or what are the citizens of Denver to do? So, Joshua, do you think the citizens of Denver will let this thing through? I mean, they continue to allow these sales taxes to pass year after year. This isn't the first one.
This one may have a little more pushback, and I'm hoping it does. I don't know of an organized, unfortunately, I don't know of an organized campaign to oppose it. And those things are, this is always the issue, right? It's difficult to scramble to get together unless you have enough lead time to put together something organized to oppose it. The people in favor of it, by definition, have the backing of the city council. They have all that election machinery, all that election machinery. They have, lists of their contributors, people who they know that they can count on. It's easy for them to put something together. It's much harder to put something to oppose it. That said, I think part of the reason that it had a harder time passing the city council, and whether or not there was some doubt as to whether it would pass, is that there's some suspicion that if they both pass, this is going to move Denver up like over 9% for sales taxes.
Oh my gosh!
And by the way, here's an irony to this. 9%. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. No wonder we're going to go. We are lucky. We have a King Super down the street, but we also have a King Super just a little farther down the street that's in Glendale. That doesn't have the same sales taxes that Denver does, and so whatever else one may think of Glendale, it doesn't have that sales tax problem, and so we may end up going there.
You read all the stories of the restaurants closing all the time downtown. People aren't going. The foot traffic's not there. So business after business is shutting down. And the solution is to tax people more. It's just wild to me. I want to continue this with Joshua Sharf in just a second, but I got to tell you about my friend Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He's with us on the issues. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case, right? You don't just want one of those ambulance chasers coming into the courtroom with you. It's not a serious look. Dan is the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, he's a real winner in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche, a serious firm for serious cases, but he's not just reserved for the rich and wealthy. Dan Kaplis accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. Dan, if you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. Now, Billy, you had a question for Joshua Sharf with the Independence Institute. Go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, Joshua, looking at how the Democrats are coming at this one, asking for more money all the time, I want you to put on your fiscal analysis hat and talk about the impact to the city of Denver and what happens to the tax base and what happens to businesses when things get more expensive. Just like you talked about the 2 different King Supers, when I can drive down the road and get outside of Denver and lower the cost I'm paying, why would I still either continue to patronize Denver businesses, or even worse, someone like Jeff or myself who's in the suburbs? They need to draw us into the city. Making things more expensive in the city is a negative, isn't it?
Sure. I mean, it's less of an issue if you actually live in the suburbs. But the fact is, if let's say you're driving, you're doing that terrible, evil thing of driving into town, And so you have the option of let's say the workday is over. You have an errand to run. You have a quick errand to run, something you need to pick up. So you can either go to the King Super right near the office, or the Home Depot that's right on the way to I-25 or whatnot, and get it before you get on the highway, and then it's done, and you don't have to worry about it. Or you can go to the Home Depot or King Super or whatever store near your house and do it after your commute. Well, which do you think you're going to do? And so, it's going to drive business out. The other thing is these sales taxes never raise as much money as they believe they will, and that's exactly the reason, because people shift their buying elsewhere. There are a couple of, but the people who can shift their buying elsewhere. So here's one of the things about sales tax. It's a good point you brought up. Sales taxes are regressive. And even when you cut out and you say, well, clothing, we're not going to tax clothing, we're not going to tax food, we're not going to tax certain items, it still is regressive, because what happens is the people who have more money, and that's fine, and it's perfectly okay, they buy more expensive clothing, which is still exempt, or if they go to the grocery store, they go to an upscale grocery store, and so they buy more expensive stuff, for the house. I mean, generally restaurant meals are still taxed, but food to take home. So it's still a regressive tax, even though certain items are expensive, which means what you're doing is people who maybe don't have cars, or people who live in town and it's harder for them because of time constraints, or because of maybe they only have one car in the family, or for whatever reason, for them to drive and have the time to go drive someplace else. So they sort of have to shop closer to home. They're the ones who get hit by this harder. So what you're doing is you're talking about housing affordability at the lower end, and then you're making life more expensive, disproportionately more expensive for exactly those people.
Yeah, but then again, the city thinks that we can build apartments for $5,000, evidently. So again,
well,
who's doing the math?
I think that, right. Well,
who's doing the math?
No, I said we'll call them Johnstonville.
Yes.
No, they're. I think, like I said, I think that's a marginal. I think that's like a marginal cost to induce affordable housing. But it's still, again, you wouldn't have to do it at all if they looked at what was some of the things that were driving up the cost. By the way, I want to go back to one quick point before we have to go.
Please.
We talked about the illegal immigrants, and I think that really is an important point. Governor Abbott, this is compare us to Texas. Governor Abbott did one thing, which was he sent a lot of, this is great. Y'all are for an open border as long as you don't have to pay the cost.
Yes.
And so what he did was he started sending people. He and DeSantis started sending people very publicly to other parts of the country. And a lot of asylum seekers or independent illegal immigrants ended up here in Denver. And of course, at which point the city council screams, well, how unfair is that? How terrible is that? The one thing that, of course, they won't do is pass a resolution requesting that our elected representatives force the Border Patrol to actually, which is trying to do its job, force the administration to enforce the law. That's one thing. The other thing is, one other thing that Abbott did was he recently issued an order. I don't think it was a legislative action. I think it was an executive action requiring hospitals to publish how much of their costs we're going to treat illegal immigrants.
Wow.
Again, not to deny them medical services.
Just to understand what the costs are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Joshua, we're just out of time here. I really appreciate it. You can follow Joshua Sharf's pieces on Complete Colorado at CompleteColorado.com. That's CompleteColorado.com. Joshua Sharf with the Independence Institute. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. Have a good day.
Billy, tell us about Balance
Well Space. I'm working with this new team of doctors at Balance Well Space. They're brand new here to Colorado. New offices right there in Lowry, across from Hangar 2. Just built them. Plenty of parking, great shady trees to park under. And I had an amazing experience about something that didn't happen to me this weekend because I'm working with the team at Balance Well Space. Their integrative medicine philosophy works wonders for you and works wonders for me because it's a one-stop shop. They have chiropractic, neuropathy, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and so much more, plus some cutting-edge technologies that I can't even pronounce because it seems to have way too many consonants. But they haven't been approved by the FDA, but they've shown progress. They've shown improvement, so they have an entire suite of things they can do to fix your pain. You're dealing with a neuropathy. It's hard to get up and down those stairs. What they can do is nothing short of remarkable. The chiropractic care, what they're doing for me with physical rehabilitation and wave therapy and regenerative care is crazy. Because as I just told you, there's something that didn't happen this week to me because of my treatments at Balance Wellspace. Check them out at balancewellspace.com, balancewellspace.com. What didn't happen is severe back pain. This weekend, I've been feeling great. We went out to celebrate my father-in-law's birthday. We were in the restaurant. I'm feeling good, but I'm sitting wrong. I'm wrong in the chair because I've been feeling so good. And we get about 2/3 of the way through the meal, I start losing feeling in my right leg. Now my left leg is going. My back starts seizing up on me. I turn pale, so much so that my wife, under her breath, looks at me across the table and goes, "Are you okay? Is everything fine?" I get up and I wander around through the restaurant and then outside for a while because that's what's going to help immediately. And it felt better, but it still hurt. I was being stupid sitting in the chair. I had forgotten my proper posture because I've been feeling so good with Balance Wellspace. Now, in the past, what would happen to Bill? I'd wake up the next morning and I'd walk around like I'm 80 for a while. I would ache and moan all day. It would restrict everything I could do for the next few days. That Sunday morning, this past weekend, just yesterday, I woke up. Yeah, I hurt a little. In 10 minutes, gone. I didn't feel anything. It was nothing short of remarkable. I want you to feel the same difference in your pain that I'm experiencing right now. BalanceWellspace.com, BalanceWellspace.com. They'll create a custom plan just for you, and they'll reevaluate your progress every couple of weeks. When's the last time your medical team talked about you and your progress? Yeah, they don't. That's the difference. BalanceWellspace.com. Talk to Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, the entire team. It's a one-stop shop, one appointment, tons of things done to you, and you're out and you're done. BalanceWellspace.com. They're the team I trust. I think you can trust them too. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. If you missed any of the discussion with Jimmy Stengenberger, with Joshua Sharp, go to the 710 KNUS website, download the podcast there. Great conversation as we are covering, oh boy, all the Tina Peters stuff. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that as the jury goes into deliberations. But it's been great to be with you on this Monday morning. We'll be back tomorrow. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. For goodness sakes, go out and be productive. What are you doing here? Listen with us anymore. We're done. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, I am.